Okay, I'd like to make a statement of adequate notice. Adequate notice of the meeting to be held by the Township of Ocean Board of Education on Tuesday, January 11, 2021 at 6:30 at 7 o'clock has been approved in accordance with the requirements of Chapter 231, Public Laws 1975. Number one, notice of the meeting was posted on the bulletin board in the lobby of the administration building, 16163 Monmouth Road, Oakhurst, New Jersey. All Ocean Township District schools and transportation, and the school district website on January 6, 2022. Number two, notice of the meeting was transmitted to the Asbury Park Press and the New Coaster newspaper on January 6, 2022. Notice of the meeting was filed with the Municipal Court, Township of Ocean, January 6, 2022. Can I have a roll call?
Yes, Ms. Beal.
Thank you.
Here.
Ms. Gilman,
Here.
Ms. Hayes. She's late. Mr. McCarthy,
Here.
Ms. McGovern,
Here.
Alamis.
Here.
Ms. Telerico. Absent. Ms. Torello. Natalie, I think you're on mute.
Yeah, she's here.
Okay, and then Mr. Weinstein,
Here.
we have a quorum.
Okay, great, thank you. So let me just do some things on the president's report. Okay. So on the president's report, have a few things I just want to kind of talk through. First off, I just want to appreciate all the work everybody did last week, dealing with our shortened day and virtual at the high school, and I want to thank all the administration for all it did, and all the teachers, and also the parents and the kids for their patience as we were kind of navigating through that week. So, and hopefully we're getting on our path kind of back to normal. Saying that, myself and Jim went to see the basketball game last night, see the girls play. So we watched the girls play a great game, and they beat the pants off of Point Pleasant Borough, which was nice to see. And it was also great to see nice little attendance and everybody all masked up, and it was a nice time. Yep. Let me talk about a couple of other things, and there's a couple of things I want to talk about. One is a conversation I had with the mayor. The other is I want to talk about communication and emails, discuss some board committees, and just the process of us going through meetings and things like that. I just want to discuss those things relatively quickly. So I think Friday night I had a conversation with the mayor and talking about some of the challenges that we might foresee in having kids students tested. So after that conversation, myself, Mayor Siciliano, and Jim had a meeting on Monday morning. And on Monday morning, we told them about our situation. The town was already thinking about having more temporary facilities for vaccinations. We kind of had a discussion and told him testing was really our major issue. And so he took that and said he was going to try to figure out how he could help us and how he could kind of support some of our efforts, as well as the town in large, right? So, and so today we were kind of notified by them that they're going to set up some, with the help of the Visitor Nurses Association, set up some testing facilities. I believe it's by the Oakhurst Fire Station for this Thursday, next Tuesday, and the following Thursday. And
Tuesday and.
there's going to be a flyer that goes out
Okay.
early tomorrow morning that Dr. Stankiewicz and their team is going to, right, sometime tomorrow, right. But I just want to give a heads up that we had a nice conversation with the mayor. Mayor really kind of responded to what we were saying and is really helping us out. And so we only have a certain amount of staff, but we're going to basically make sure it's known that this will be going on. And then, sometime we'll see where the world is on next Thursday and see what other kind of help we need. And we'll kind of take it one step at a time. Okay.
I'm sorry, what does the staff have to do with it?
I said we didn't have enough. They said they were helping us because we didn't have enough staff to do our own testing.
Oh, okay, I thought you meant like we were sending staff there, okay.
But the testing is not for our students.
It's for the whole
staff.
community.
Anyway,
The whole
The
community.
whole community,
and then
right.
PCR test.
PCR tests, yes.
Do we
Okay,
know- Do
so
we know what
They
the
are-
turnaround is gonna be?
As it says on the flyer, it says PCR spit test.
Yeah, let's wait till the flyer comes out because we really want to make sure it's solidified and have all the
Yeah.
detail on it. Okay, so I'm not sure how much has to be more detail.
Yeah, it says, well, this will go out tomorrow.
Okay, just on the idea of communications and emails. So if an email comes to all of us at the board or more than one board member, so it goes to myself and a bunch of other board members. And Jim is also, and Jim is not on that email, right? I'm gonna respond to that email. I'm gonna copy Jim and I'm gonna copy Irene. Okay, I'm not gonna copy the rest of the board. If Jim gets an email and and we're on that email, Jim is gonna respond and just copy me, all right? If, I'm doing this with Irene, so if Irene sees that I haven't gotten to something quick enough, she's gonna remind me. And so we're gonna kind of go through that process, right? So let's also just be careful when we're sending emails out again. We don't want to send out emails to too many people, right? And violate some things, all right? So let's make sure we're just conscious of that. The other is, so on the board committees, so tomorrow I'm gonna send out a list of the board committees that we have. And also liaison committees to the school district that we have as well. And I'm gonna list the people who are currently on it. And then I think you've all kind of said things to me. You can just email me directly to tell me the boards that you want to be on. Don't pick more than 5. I think there's only, so, just kind of be judicious about this, but feel free to kind of send me what you, don't all rush to be on the policy committee. I have a feeling a lot of people are going to want to be on that. So just kind of sit tight and, just be careful.
You're all.
Right. All right, enough over there.
Yeah.
Right. And just for us on the process for our meetings, just a normal kind of thing here, we're going to do one question at a time. Okay, so if we have questions, I'm going to do one person at a time. I want to make sure I'm also conscientious to the people who are, remote and make sure I get them on board. So I think the other day I wasn't as thoughtful as I want to be. So I want to make sure that after each question, I want to make sure we kind of rotate around. The other thing is that, I've been on the board now for, I guess, 3 years. And of those 36 months, unfortunately, 22 of them have been around COVID. And the dynamics of this board, I think we want to figure out how to really kind of steer more towards policy and more towards governing these policies and making sure that the policies that we have in place are being implemented the way we kind of feel good about, right? I think we want to, as best as we can, right? Let's make sure we're avoiding, day-to-day operations. The tenor and the tone of the meetings. I like to make sure that we're, as positive as we can be. I'm very concerned at one level about the fact that most recently we had a couple of senior people leave our district. And, as we go out and start recruiting new people to come to our districts, I want us to be viewed as somebody who is, as an entity that's, that has the right balance between supportive, inquisitive, governing correctly, but make sure that we have that stature as somebody who wants to be, part of this district, right? And I want to make sure we're kind of going through that because we have some hires that we're going to have to make, and who knows when people retire and how all those things go, right? So as best as we can, let's make sure we keep it to the policy kind of related things. And I think with that, I am going to turn it over to our superintendent, Dr. Spankwitz, for his superintendent's report.
Well, gee, thanks, Jeff. For your first president's report, that was just outstanding.
Thank you.
So
Thank
I
you.
would
Meeting
applaud
adjourned.
if I would applaud, but I'm not going to. Okay, so yes, we are back open 100% full schedule, which is great. Last week, I think kind of easing back there a little bit with the half-day schedules. And I think Mr. Weinstein said it, we understand that it's sometimes difficult on families to make the changes to their schedules, but I think in many ways that really kind of helped us in the long run. We say all the time that, short-term sacrifices help us in the long run, which is the goal. Nice to be able to get that day in on Friday virtually and then give everybody a chance to go out and have a little fun in the snow, hopefully. So that was a good thing. But we're back full day, First 2 days have been pretty good. I think our staff has done a tremendous job over this last week and a half. It's, the stress level is high. We know that, there's just a lot going on. We're back to where we were about a year ago and that's, and more, right? Because we haven't seen levels of cases like this. But that being said, our folks are doing what they need to do and are when I'm through the buildings, the kids are happy and I know that they need to be in school. They want to be in school. And I know our staff wants to be in school, they do. I think we're all tired. We're all ready to be quote unquote normal again, but and every time we say just a little bit longer, a little bit longer, a little bit longer, it kind of blows up again, which is very, difficult and frustrating for all of us. So, we need to just continue to I think, stay the course and focus on kids and focus on what kids need. And, we'll continue to do the best things for kids. There are some changes coming to the quarantine and isolation guidelines. So I'm going to send something out tomorrow that speaks to this. The good news is that the quarantine and isolation times are shortening. They are becoming, they are lessening, I should say. So, just to kind of do it quickly, it's kind of complicated. So I'm not going to get into the whole complication of everything. But in essence, if you have COVID, if you've been diagnosed with COVID and you are recovering well, if you're doing well, basically what they consider to be mild COVID, you could return as early as 5 days, no longer 10-day. And that is for both staff and students. And if you're a close contact, similar, that the time is going to be reduced as long as a person is not showing any kind of symptoms down to 5 days. And when I say 5 days, realize that's 5 days after the contact. So sort of day one, the day of the contact would be a day 0, and then day 1, day 2, day 3, day 4, day 5, and then they could return. So that's earlier. And that's a good thing because it gets our staff back quicker, it gets our kids back quicker, and some of the rules regarding who would have to quarantine have changed. Primarily for the purpose of close contact and quarantine, the definition of fully vaccinated has changed for staff. So if a staff member is considered a close contact, in order for them not to have to quarantine, they need to be boosted. Okay. If they just have the 2-dose or the 1-dose J&J, they would still have to quarantine. However, we are looking at a test to stay program for staff in that regard. And we think we can do that and manage that both from a resources standpoint. The interesting thing regarding students is that quite often by the time we get, and this will apply to staff as well, vaccinated students, not boosted students, but vaccinated students still do not have to quarantine. Students who've had COVID within the last 90 days do not have to quarantine. Unvaccinated students or students who have not had their full dose, full course of vaccination would have to quarantine. However, often by the time we actually get the word that someone is tested positive, that their quarantine time may actually be either up or close to being up. That is not atypical. So we will, I talked with Dave Henry today from the Regional Health Commission. These guidelines came out yesterday. And we always work with the Health Commission to see what they're adopting, what they're in favor. So they are absolutely in favor of us moving in this direction. I also want to stress if people have more moderate or severe cases of COVID, obviously that return in 5 days may not happen. If you're still symptomatic, if you're still after those 5 days, you need to stay out at least the 10 days, if not longer. And our nurses will make that assessment before people come back. They always do that, right? So these are just in a nutshell. Like I said, I'll send out the whole document tomorrow, but that's just some of the changes that are going to take place in the next couple of days. And overall, I think it's good changes, but there are still some things we're going to have to work through.
Can you finish the report? Let's have,
Yeah.
let's have him finish
I'll-
this whole
well,
report. and then we'll
That's
ask some
primarily it. The
questions.
other thing I just wanted to mention, and we did send out a text and at Facebook, and we sent it's on the website. The governor did today actually issue a state of emergency, which and issued an executive order, I think it's 281, if I'm not mistaken, that will extend the mask mandates beyond this evening. They were scheduled to end tonight at 11:59 PM. They will extend, so mask mandates stay in all school buildings for all staff and students. Basically, the rules that existed will be the rules that will continue in exist regarding masks in schools. Okay? So I think that's what I've got this
Great.
evening.
Thank you very much.
Those are the two biggies.
Great. Ms. Gilman, you had a
My question was about the shortened quarantine just for the 5 days. Does that require a test to come back
No.
after 5? No test.
Does not.
Well, that's a good thing because tests are so hard to get. And if we are saying you can come back after 5 days with no symptoms, only if
Or
you have a
it could
test
be improving symptoms
If-
as well.
or improving.
Right, it doesn't mean everybody has to be completely asymptomatic. It means you have to be at least fever-free for 24 hours, very similar to our typical if you're sick rules, right? Fever-free for 24 hours or more without use of medication, fever reducers. And you have to have improving symptoms. Sometimes people with COVID will have a lingering cough or, something like that, but they're no longer in a transmission state, right? So that's part of the assessment, but it's not required. We don't require it now
for a
to
test.
come back. And it's not going to be required in the new guidelines.
Okay,
Thank
Ms.
you.
Hayes? Do you have a question?
Were you done? Irene?
Yes,
Yeah.
yes.
Yeah, I have a couple questions. So,
One question at a time.
okay, I'll try. Sorry, I had to get my brain thinking here. Like you said, it's very complicated. So even the Department of Health alert yesterday is 5,000 words. It's really difficult for the average person to read. So are we going to be making it very clear and almost infographic perhaps for students and parents? Because I have a feeling we're going to be poised to get a ton of questions and the nurses are going to be overwhelmed, being I don't understand what this means. So it's how are we going to say, is it just going to be another superintendent letter? Because that's going to be confusing.
Well, obviously we want to start things moving as quickly as we possibly can, because also too, we can get back kids now earlier than we want to try to get kids back. I'm going to send out a letter. I'll include the information. I will try to, before it goes out, I'll try to kind of take out a lot of the, kind of simplify it a little bit to make it a little less. But I think what's most important is that anyone who still has to quarantine or anyone who still tests positive still has to go through our nurse. These are not self diagnoses nor I'll determine when I come back. It's not that we tell you when it's okay for you to come back. So our nurses make contact with every single solitary individual who has to either quarantine or is positive, and then gives them their return date. And then follows up before they return to ensure that they're scheduled to return. And they explain exactly what the situation is. So that will continue as they've done all from the very beginning, which has absolutely been incredibly overwhelming for them in the last couple of weeks. And they've done an amazing job. And they will continue to do that. But yes, I will work to put out something that is a little more user-friendly than what arrived. But obviously, we want to, we have to be thorough. And so people try to explain all of the scenarios, but be as user-friendly.
Yeah, I mean, I think the general, it's more like a general policy thing, right? It's on this one, just, think about how to.
Yeah, I mean, if you look what's up there now, it kind of says, if you're this, then this is what you do. If you're this is what you do. And I think we'll try to keep it to that. There's a lot of language in there that speaks of things that I think are more for us and not as critical for the public. So,
Parents.
Anyone remote have a question? Nope.
I still have
John.
others, but
What, I'm sorry?
I still have other questions.
Yeah, I know, we're gonna do one
Vaccinated.
question at a time per
Gotcha.
person, right?
I just
Charlie, you
want
have
to
a question?
clarify the definition of vaccinated. You stated that it's been increased to vaccinate to the 2 initial shots and boosted if you have the Pfizer or
If
the.
you're an adult over 18 or older and only for the purpose of quarantine. It has not changed for the purpose of the vaccination testing requirement
Okay,
for the staff.
okay,
So for staff, and I got a clarification on this today. So for the other executive order, which was 253, which requires staff to either be vaccinated or submit to weekly testing. The definition of vaccinated, fully vaccinated remains just the 2-dose Pfizer, Moderna, or 1-dose J&J. But for quarantine purposes, it has changed, which
Confusing.
ask me if it makes sense. Please don't ask that question.
Well,
because
yeah,
I'll tell you
well-
whether some of this does or doesn't make sense. It's just the way it is.
so then the question that I have though is, isn't there a 5-month delay on boosting as well? Like if we have a staff member who decided that they were holding off on the vaccine, they've gotten it, let's say 2 months ago when cases got crazy.
Yeah.
Are they now
It's my understanding for quarantine
they're still
purposes,
subject?
see, they would still be subject. But I would tell you, I think that's a great point. And if someone is just newly vaccinated, because I think the idea is for Pfizer, Moderna, you should be, if you're more than 5 months out, it's a recommended booster. If you're JJ, it's more than 2 months out. So, I think that's a very fair point, that could be something that hasn't been accounted for. I think the general idea is that the overwhelming majority of people who were intending to be initially vaccinated have done so at this point. That's not to say that it couldn't be a situation that you just described,
Okay,
but overwhelmingly, you're probably already at that.
do we
point.
know what we will do in those situations?
We would contact the Monmouth County Regional Health
Okay.
Commission and run that past them and get their guidance on that.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, great. Anybody else remote before we? Nope, okay. Alex, you have another question?
Yeah, so, I mean, there's a bunch of kids on quarantine right now that probably are affected. So before parents can just think, oh, my kid's been out for 6 days, I'm still waiting on a test.
Yeah,
I'm
we're
gonna
gonna
send
we're
them tomorrow.
contacting, we're gonna start contacting those individuals tomorrow.
But you cannot send your kid on a bus tomorrow because you think your kid is fine and cleared of these
Right now,
rules, right?
until we contact you,
Yep.
the dates that we
Okay.
gave you are in
In
place.
place.
Yeah,
Okay.
because we have to check to make sure the student is well enough to come back to school.
Yeah,
That's part of it.
absolutely.
Okay, anybody else? Nope. Good, Alex.
Just raise your hand if you do.
Well, I want to make sure that people,
Yeah, no,
yeah,
I get it.
everybody has a
Um,
chance.
and you had mentioned test to stay for staff, so,
Yeah, we're still working on that piece.
but are we still working on test to stay for students then?
At this time, that's still a little bit on hold because right now we have
It's
enough,
gotten
we
better.
have enough tests in-house to work it with staff. To do it with students would be very difficult because the volume of students is significant compared to staff. And like I said, I think in most instances, by the time a student is told, like, for example, we were made aware of a situation today where students were exposed last Thursday. Today would have been their last day of quarantine if they are asymptomatic. We basically contacted those individuals and said, today would have been your last day of quarantine, as long as you're asymptomatic and remain so, but you have to symptom watch and so on and so forth. So, I don't know that there's going to be a lot of days between notification and what days they would actually come back. Many students will only be out for a couple of days potentially with this. And so I don't know that a test to stay is really, by the time you get results of things and, it's going to kind of even out.
Sure.
So I don't know how much that's going to be necessary but for staff, which, and we may be in a similar situation for staff by the time we find out about something. But, obviously right now, when we have staffing shortages, we want kids back too as early as possible, don't get me wrong, but having our staff back as early as possible is so critical to the operation of the district that, we want to make sure that we keep them in. And from a testing standpoint, that's what we have the resources to do at this time.
And of course, you brought up student testing, so, I'll probably follow up on my many questions about Rover and
Mhm.
why can't we give additional tests to students. The Department of Education, Secretary Cardona says we should be using federal funds, ARP funds to buy tests for kids. But somehow we don't want to in this district.
Well,
So
it's
why
not-
can't
it's-
we?
I don't think it's a question of want to. I think, once again, to use those funds on consumables like tests that are not 100% accurate, I mean, we've gone over this. I just don't think it's the best use of the funds. Rover, absolutely. Unfortunately, I've contacted them again. I haven't heard back from them as the status of that. But I think part of the issue is the federal government now has talked about upping, sending everyone home tests. We've worked with our town to get testing up and going. We are providing, if a student is symptomatic, we are, in some cases, we're speaking to the parent. If testing is an issue, we are providing rapid tests to those students. So we're certainly not using tests for kids. We are,
Yeah,
but in isolated kinds of situations, realizing that, as I've stated, that if it comes up negative, they still have to go out and still have to get a PCR and still have to do that. So that's why I think these town, right, it's great that the town is going to help us out over these next couple of weeks, because that's really going to help, the PCR testing piece of this. So, I think for right now, with what we have in terms of our resources, the way we have it now is I think, we're in a pretty good place. Plus, I think we're seeing that the testing coming out of the winter break is improving overall around town. It's a little easier right now. Not that it's easy, but it's a little easier to get appointments now than it was, say, a week ago and what have you. And the turnaround is still is a little bit better than it was a week or so ago. So, I think we've really tried to cover a lot of the bases, and I think we're in a pretty good spot.
Okay, if
Well,
there's no more questions.
my final question then is more for the board, I guess. Rover received a lot of money to come to schools to initiate testing, and they got that money specifically to test students, not staff. The bonus was staff, but so most districts took it to start with staff first, which I get. So, I mean, can we ever issue some kind of a, sternly worded letter? Like, you have not started this program yet in our district. Why? Where are our tests? What's going on? I mean, is that something that the board ever has done, would consider? They're not answering, right? They're not like, not to
You mean-
shame Rover, but I'm
No,
sorry,
they
they're not
haven't
getting.
always been incredibly responsive.
Let me just.
They have not always been, yeah, and that, I don't find that acceptable when,
So, let me just,
Yeah.
so, let me ask you a question. So how, you have calls into these people,
Primarily
and they're not
emails,
calling you back.
emails primarily, yeah.
And if you were talking to them, what would you say? You would say, what's.
Is this a public meeting or or is this being recorded right now?
It's,
Oh. No, what would I say? I mean, the questions that we have for them are primarily twofold. I think, the last question I asked them is, what is the status of our student testing situation? The last we heard, as I reported out last week, was that they were moving to providing home tests for students. That was the last we heard. We heard that over break. We said we were going to be contacted. We have not been contacted. I've checked around with other superintendents. Some districts, they have started the student programs. Other districts, they had not started the student programs.
Okay, all right.
So,
okay.
it's definitely
So-
been challenging
So-
across the board. The
Well,
staff testing has gone well.
Okay, so,
well,
I
that's,
feel if I'm not really one for a letter. I like to figure out how to actually get into somebody, so, because the letter, just kind of goes into the ether sometimes.
But then it's on
Would you,
paper.
how would you feel if we were to try to contact them?
In terms of what? In terms
Yeah, be
of-
fun, make a phone call to somebody on, and kind of say, okay, what gives here?
As a Board of Education?
Is it board of vacation, or is it that not? is that not-
I
You don't think that's
don't think
appropriate?
that's what
You don't think that's
the board
appropriate?
Shouldn't,
would do.
shouldn't
Okay.
somebody, if this is a
So what would you
federally
recommend,
funded program, shouldn't somebody be
hang on for a second,
contacting?
John, what would you recommend to kind of escalate it to them?
Well, I think we just, I think I and my colleagues need to continue to put the pressure on. I mean, I speak with the county superintendent about it all the time, and unfortunately, he doesn't have the, through no fault for him, he doesn't have the answers either. I think a lot of the problem is at, the Department of Health and Department of Education level. Part of the issue may be that there's just a lot there. One, tests are more at a premium now than they've been. But I think the other issue is I wonder if things were kind of put on hold a little bit to see what the federal government was going to do, because they're talking about providing tests to everyone. They're talking about now insurance covering up to 8 tests per month for everybody. There's a lot, I think, that's going on policy wise at the federal government and state government level that may have put some of these plans on hold. So, I just don't know. Most of the people with whom I'm speaking don't have the answers either. So I think we need to keep calling and keep the pressure on. But, very soon they need to come out with, because we still have tests, but we're using them and we're going to run out. We're supposed to get replenished as we get low, but, I'm starting to get concerned that that's not going to happen, at least, in the short term. I mean, another thing I would say for people, and Alex, your suggestion before the break was an excellent one in terms of the one that the state is giving out. Shortly after that, I went online and ordered 4 tests for my family and my mother in South Jersey and got them in 3 days. So I mean, they
just
are
did it on
available. They
Sunday.
do come quickly and they're there. So that's another option for people. And that's a PCR test. And it is another option for people. So they're all out there. It's just, people have to use the avenues to try to find them. And I think the work that we're doing now with Ocean Township over these next couple of
Sure.
Tuesdays and Thursdays is going to be very helpful as well.
Natalie, did you want to say something about this? Natalie?
Yeah, I just had more of a comment. So Oakhurst Pharmacy is another resource. I walked in last night at 5:15 and I was back in my car at 5:20, having taken the PCR test. So
Nice.
they're available, they're there. Maybe worth reaching out to them to see if they're able to work with us in any way, if we can kind of filter our staff through there if it comes to that. So that's all.
You're not subsidized by Ocean Oakhurst Pharmacy in any way, right?
You have no affiliation with.
You have no
Oakhurst Pharmacy.
affiliation with Oakhurst Pharmacy.
No. No.
It's important to say.
Yeah, well, half joking, I guess.
But they never gave us remember how they were giving us like 200 tests per building and we didn't even get that from Rover? Did we ever get that finally?
The larger, the middle school never got a supply.
I
The
mean-
high school got 180 tests.
That's crazy.
And the elementary schools, Wayside got, I think, 180, but like Wanamasa got maybe 110 or 120, it was based on the size. So, we still have a supply, but
Sure. But
we were able to, we took some of the ones we had and gave them to the intermediate school so that everybody had some and, appropriate to the size of the building. And we have them. We're not in dire straits right now, but if we keep going at the pace we're going, we're going to definitely need some more tests in the next couple weeks. Now, if we get to that point, we don't get them from over, then we will look to, I think, make a purchase of tests. We're certainly not saying that we would never do that. I just think we're at a place where we don't need to do that now.
Okay, so Alex, to your question, I think it might be nice to write a letter, but hard to believe that that's going to be the thing to flip a switch here, So Jim, why don't you give us your,
Yeah, keep going.
why don't you go, keep going,
Yeah.
pound away. If you feel like that you want us to need some, if you want to feel like. you
Well,
think-
look, I
if you-
I think
I
he's
think-
persistent, but I mean, he has other things to
Yeah,
do too.
but
Yeah,
you-
I think,
but I
I
mean,
think,
yeah.
what may work is, if there's any, other political contacts calling Rover
Sure,
directly.
I'll go, I'll do.
Calling
I'll-
Rover directly,
I'll-
maybe.
I'll
I'm
do-
not
I'll do-
speaking to our
I'll do
legislators.
what
Yeah,
you
our
want to do.
legislators
Okay,
there.
I'll-
Could certainly maybe
Okay.
help to move things along.
Okay.
That I think would be.
Okay, Jim,
perfectly
I got it.
appropriate. You got it, Jeff?
I got it. I'll do what I did.
You
Okay.
got it?
Yes,
All
I'll make
right,
some
just want
calls.
to make sure you got it.
Great, okay. Let's move on. Thank you, Jim, for that, and thanks for all the work you and everybody are doing, so thank you. Okay. We're now going to move to our public comment section.
School business
No,
administrator.
Tina.
Oh, sorry, Tina.
That's okay.
Tina, would you
I'll
like, do you
keep it
have any
brief.
school
I'll keep
business?
it brief
I
because
thought
we have
Jim was
people that-
incorporating your
No,
stuff.
no, because we
No,
want
I'm
to
joking.
have people present further down on the agenda, but I want to just give everybody update on technology. So the switches, the switch upgrades finally came in. So all the switches came in. We've installed them. They'll be completed by the end of this week, which means the high school will have all new switches, and we've begun the switch replacement for all of the other schools. Now, depending upon the budgets over the next 2 years or so, will determine how quickly we replace the switches out for the rest of the school. So that'll be one of the prioritizations that we'll be working on as we develop the budget for this year and next year. Chromebooks. So last week, of course, was a week that we were virtual and, you know, we were in half-day schedules. I want to thank the technology department because they really did an outstanding job. So now, if anything does happen and we need to go back to being virtual, every single student now has cases, their Chromebooks ready, they have like power supplies. So
Remember, I'm sorry if I could just add to that.
Go ahead.
Remember, the elementary kids typically don't bring their Chromebooks home back and forth, where the secondary kids do. So now, we've made that possible. Hopefully we won't ever, we won't need it because we won't have to go virtual again. But yeah, you're correct. But I just wanted to-
And then the final thing is, we're replacing like the wireless network, but we're having supply chain issues with that as well. So it's taking a little bit longer than what we had anticipated. So I just want to make sure everybody's aware of that as we proceed through this year.
Great, thanks for
That's it.
thanks for an update.
Okay.
Thanks for an update, really appreciate it. And actually, I kind of also want to say kudos to the technology team and all the support team that's kind of involved with that. So Sean, where's Sean? Is Sean here?
He left.
He's here.
Sean, tell your friends.
He's here. He's hiding someplace.
But thanks for bringing all that up. Great, now I think I could go to public comment, right? Thank you. Public comment regarding agenda items only. All motions are posted on the bulletin board, the district website. At this point of the meeting, we will now conduct the first of 2 public comment sessions. The first session will be opened for the public comments on agenda items only. The second session will be at the end of the meeting and can be on any topic. Would anybody from the public like to comment on any agenda topics at this time? Since there's nobody in our immediate vicinity right here, Ms. Conley, do you have anybody that would like to make a comment?
No, President Weinstein, there are no commenters at this time.
Great, thank you very much. Now I'd like to move to item 7, approval of minutes. Irene?
Certainly, Mr. Weinstein, 7.1, approval of minutes. Move to approve the meeting minutes in accordance with Board of Education bylaw 0168, recording of board meetings for our work meeting and executive session on December 21st, 2021. 7.2, move to approve the meeting minutes in accordance with Board of Ed bylaw 0168, recording of board meetings for our December 21st, 2021 regular meeting. 7.3, move to approve the meeting minutes in accordance with Board of Ed bylaw 0168, recording of board meetings, our annual reorganization meeting minutes held January 4th, 2022. Are there any changes, comments?
First, I think we need a
corrections?
second. First, need a
I'll second it.
Second, great.
Okay, Ms. Beal.
Well, first, I
now
think just to Irene's question. Anybody have any comments or questions?
Or questions, changes? None noted.
Okay. Ms. Beal.
Yes.
Ms. Gilman.
Yes.
Ms. Hayes.
Yes.
Mr. McCarthy.
Yes.
Ms. McGovern.
Yes.
Carlamas.
Yes.
Ms. Tortorella.
Yes.
Mr. Weinstein.
Yes,
Motion carries.
thank you very much, Ms. Gilman. Financial management and resource services, Ms. Tortorella.
Thank you, Mr. Weinstein. I have 6 items for this evening, 2 for approval and 4 for discussion. 8.1, move to approve the following resolution. Be it resolved that upon the recommendation of the Chief School Administrator, the Township of Ocean Board of Ed ratify and affirm SEEC LLC DBA Central Boiler Repair for the emergency installation of a new RBI boiler model in the Ocean Township Elementary School in the amount of $68,500. The emergency replacement was necessary to keep the building sanitary, heated, and operational. 8.2, move to approve the revised personnel salary percentages to be charged off to the ESEA, ESSA grant application in accordance with the attached for the year 21-22. 8.3, Board of Ed and Administration will discuss a consulting agreement with Transpar Group, Inc. in accordance with the attached proposal. 8.4, Board of Ed and Administration will discuss the lease, purchase, and resale program of buses as described in the attached article. 8.5, Board of Ed and Administration will discuss a public notice cooperative spearheaded by Monmouth Regional High School Board of Ed as described in the attached. And 8.6, Board of Ed and Administration will discuss a service agreement with New Jersey Pediatric Feeding Associates and Therapy Center LLC to provide oral motor feeding training for a special needs student in accordance with the attached agreement. May I have a second on 8.1 and 8.2?
Second.
Okay, Ms. Truba?
Yes, are there any questions on 8.1 or 8.2
Yeah,
first?
do you want to talk about 8.1?
Yeah, can you just give us a heads up with what happened?
Okay, so basically, boiler completely went. Okay, so it's 15 years old. There's no way you can replace the parts in it any longer. We do have one boiler that is still remaining within the school. So the school is heated right now. But, you know, you need 2 full capacity boilers working operationally to keep the school heated appropriately and sanitized with the air movement, you know, flowing appropriately. So we went to the county office and we asked for an emergency repair or replacement. And we wanted to follow New Jersey purchasing rules, but we couldn't because of the timing of this. It's still going to take us 3 weeks to get the boiler in. We are using the vendor that does all our boiler repair to begin with. The county office approved it. We've basically done the PO to get the boiler in, but we won't see it till the beginning of February. Yes,
What's happening with the old boiler?
which one? We have to take it out once we put the new one in.
Do you know what happens with that after it's taken out? Or is the
No, I
company
mean,
just taking?
they basically take it for parts and scrap and we try to get money back for whatever we can.
Yeah, there should be a line item in there that shows like because they're gonna make money off that. boiler.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
Yeah.
okay.
So we should get that.
Yeah, we do.
Yes, it
We
should
do.
be included
We
in our
do.
bid.
In other words, it's part of like the reduct, like for the 68.5, they take a piece off of it. So that's what we paid for.
Okay.
Does this new boiler have any green measurements? Like, is it eco-friendly by any stretch of the means? Like, weren't we trying to make the district a little more green as possible, possibly looking
Yes,
into?
I mean,
the
it's based on the
BPU.
standards that we
Sure.
should have following what the EPA and all of that is saying. Correct.
Okay, so it won't mess with any plans to go more green?
No,
Boilers are also highly recyclable. 97% of it can be recycled.
Okay.
We checked with
little
Ms. Lepoznik today and all the rooms were on this very cold day, all the rooms are still right around 70 to 72, 73 degrees.
Anybody remote have any questions on
okay.
8.1?
Do we need to check all our other 15-year-old boilers or
well,
10?
this is part of why I wanted to do that facilities audit
Uh-huh.
and really understand so that we could be ahead of the game in terms of what we're looking to do. But we still have not finalized yet what the pricing would be of that. Like, I want to try to do something where we literally have that on our computers, where room by room, you would see
Yep.
what's happening. And so I'm working with our architects to get that as well. This is all going to be for what we want to do with the strategic planning process. So between facilities and what we're doing with transportation, we're trying to get all of the right information so that we can truly develop like a 2, 3, 4-year plan of what we're looking to do over the next X amount of years.
That's great. Anybody remote have any other questions about 8.1? Okay, great. Maybe we want to move to the discussion on 8.3?
Well, do you want to take the vote? You want to
Oh, you just want to vote on-
Let's take the vote on 8.1 and
Great.
8.2.
Great. Any questions on 8.2 or we all good? Great.
Mrs.
Okay,
Steele,
super.
Yes.
thank you. Ms. Gilman,
Yes.
Ms. Hayes,
Yes.
Ms. McCarthy,
Yes.
Mrs. McGovern,
Yes.
Ms. Polaris.
Yes.
Ms. Tellerico, I'm sorry, Mrs. Tortorella.
Yes.
Thank you. Mr. Weinstein,
Yes,
Motion carries. Okay, now discussions for 8.3
Yep.
non.
8.3, it's all yours.
Okay, so 8.3 is a company that we've been working with. This would be an audit of the efficiency of our entire transportation operation. So this would serve as the foundation of what we're looking to do over the next several years, okay, in terms of fleet management, potentially looking at what we need to do with drivers, what we need to do with maintenance, potentially taking a look at what we want to do with changing schedules potentially. So we would work with this organization to try to put a plan together, a strategic plan together over the next 2 to 3 years that makes recommendations ultimately to the administration and the board of how to optimize transportation. So that this would be a consulting agreement to allow my team to do that. Yes,
So this firm is from Charleston, South Carolina.
correct.
There is no one local in the state of New Jersey.
We put out bids for everybody, and this particular company came back with the best, in our opinion, the best quotes and the best strategic analysis of what we need to look at.
Well,
They're
according to our
very
policy-
well-known company in the transportation.
But they
market.
don't really know Ocean Township very well, being from Charleston, South Carolina.
But they work a lot of states across the country. They do work in New Jersey significantly. In fact, Monmouth is using them and,
Monmouth Regional.
yes, and one other district. I can get you that information. I don't
Yeah,
remember it
I
off the
would like
top
to
of my
see
head.
some references. And also, according to our policy, we're supposed to get 2 bids.
We did.
So-
We also used our current company that helps us, TransFinder. And we did not get, they did not come up with what we needed. This is much more in depth.
Before we get too far along on this, the question stuff, did you want to walk us through any of this stuff? Or did you feel like you just want us to ask you questions? How did you
I
think?
wanted you to ask questions, but because this one I did send out as soon as I received it. So I mean, if there's any concerns or questions, I'd like to take them. And if I can't answer them tonight, I will get back to the board.
Well, I
This
guess I
is
have
something
one,
that is in
I
our
like-
budget. We were planning on doing this. Because, you know, over the next 3 years, we're going to be close to replacing like 18 of our vehicles. And this is allowing me to look to see, can I do route consolidation? Could I potentially do 2 different, you know, like what they call it doubling up on the routes, like you pick up one area, then you go to another, so that I don't have to replace all of those buses in the future. So that's basically what we're looking for this company to help us out with.
okay.
Will they,
Let me, I want to make sure I also round robin and get just my first question, and I'll wait till I rotate around to everybody, is when was the last time something like this was done?
It hasn't been,
It's never been done.
no.
Okay, all right, great. Anybody remotely have any questions? Can't see, no?
Amy's got a question. Raise her
I
hand.
do. I
Okay.
just have a question. When you say that we're talking about staffing, we're not talking about going to, at this point, contract drivers like outside of our own contract, correct?
No, but in other words, we would need to look at it. Could that be optimal in the future? So no,
In the
right
future,
now,
you
right
say-
now, everything that we have is where they are our own Ocean County employees. We do, Ocean Township, I'm sorry. We do have 2 routes right now that we bid out, right? Do we want to take that in-house? So we need to look at all of that.
Okay.
Okay, Irene?
Maybe you don't have this figure right away, Tina, but what % of our budget is spent currently on repair and maintenance for
Oh, we
the
spend over
fleet,
$500,000 a year just on repair and maintenance of the fleet.
for our current fleet?
Correct. And as, if I go to a leasing program, that amount will go down significantly because when we are leasing the vehicles and even as we are buying them, they have a 5-year, we buy the 5-year extended bumper to bumper warranty, $150,000 mile, 150,000 miles.
We won't get those phone calls to extend our warranty, will we?
No, we don't.
I know.
That's about the best that we can get.
That's all I could.
But
think
right
of when
now,
you
our
said-
fleet is over 10 years old. Like
10
our
years
average fleet is about 10 years old.
Okay,
crazy.
John?
So the one thing I'm having trouble wrapping my head around is whether or not this is a assessment of the fleet or assessment of the logistics of our bus routes, or is it both?
Both.
It's
It's
both of those
everything.
things.
It's the optimization of our entire transportation program.
Okay, so they're gonna, on top of assessing our fleet and the viability of the individual buses, they're gonna also be looking at the bus drivers and then also the routes
The
and
routes
management of the routes. And
And,
everything.
and the maintenance and, all of that. Correct.
So the thing that I'm hesitant about with like consulting firms is that they tend to like offer the world, they in bid time, and then what's actually delivered at the end is always, you don't necessarily get what you expected. So the question I would ask is like, if we can see in addition to references, the resumes of the individuals who are gonna be focusing on these things, because just because an individual is good at route optimization doesn't mean that they're gonna be good at assessing the ability of our buses to travel an additional 100,000 miles, right? I would expect that to be two vastly different skill
That
sets.
would be our team that would be making that assessment too. I mean, so you have to understand, my transportation department will be very involved in that.
Okay,
Our transportation supervisor has 30 years of experience, of which 20 years of it has been within our district. So, they will be telling us what best in class does. We will know what our fleet is. We know what our affordability is. And we have the operations. We have the operations knowledge. So it will be a partnership of coming together with what they are providing to us, and then what we want to recommend to the administration and to the board.
so that's just all I'm asking for too, right? Is that we ensure that they're not providing us skill sets that we already possess
No,
internally and things like
absolutely
that.
not. No.
So they will be providing that sort of stuff? you
Absolutely,
expect?
they'll be providing
Like
best in class.
resumes?
I absolutely, I can get.
Okay,
Yep.
the individuals, okay.
Okay, Alex?
So as with many consultants, they'll be giving us like 6 plans. You could do A, B, or C.
Correct.
And here's all the things. Okay, so just 2 quick questions. Will they be looking at electric buses and all the grant programs, and there'll be at least one plan will have, some kind of component of that?
The people that are on today waiting to speak, they could talk to the electric bus.
Oh, I don't
programs.
think I realized people were actually
Yeah.
coming in to speak. Okay.
That's the
And,
next one,
and
lease
they'll-
purchase discussion.
sorry. Then they'll get into the minutia of GPS on buses and a text alert for parents even.
Correct.
Okay, cool, thank
The
you.
best in class of what we want to provide to the district. So, I mean,
Okay.
right now, everything that I'm looking at in the lease program, the GPS process, the GPS technology, camera
part of it,
technology,
'cause
it's
it's
all
all-
part of it.
Because it's all modern
Correct.
stuff.
Okay, anybody remote first before I pass it on to somebody else here? Nope. Can't see. Anybody can see? Okay. Ms. Gilman?
Having been part of a lease for a car, the
Mm-hmm.
balloon payment at the end is always the worst part. And I have many concerns about the balloon payment at the end of these options that were offered, not in the PowerPoint, which I really haven't looked at yet, but in the brochure. We're really not sure about our funding going forward over the next 5 to 7 years, as far as what our district is going to get. It's the board's responsibility to pay that balloon payment at the end. And if we are not sure how much funding we're getting, that makes me very nervous to commit to a lease program where we're going to be responsible for a large amount.
When you're
You know,
saying
when it comes to
funding,
due.
I apologize. When you're saying funding, what do you mean by?
I'm talking
funding?
about school funding for the district.
Right, well, right now, what I am seeing in the purchase program, and we're gonna talk about this at 8.4. So I have people here that we've done the modeling so that I can explain it. Right now, next year, I need to replace 6 buses. The busing prices have gone up more than 20%. So let's say an average bus that cost us $110,000 last year is close to 140 now, okay? I looked at the past 3 years of capital purchases on buses, and we're anywhere from $300,000 to $325,000 a year. Next year, I need $700,000. That's an additional $400,000 that I need to pull away from curriculum and instruction in order to be able to replace buses that I need today to get kids to school. So the way we've been doing this in the past is not going to work going forward. We have too many of these buses that are aging out at this point. So we do not have to pay balloon payments. I could set up structuring where I pay the buses outright from a leasing perspective after 5 years. Or you'll see when we go through the 8.4, I could put a balloon payment at year 6, but then sell the bus before that balloon payment comes in. And any equity that I earn, I could put towards future lease payments.
Okay, can I say
sorry.
something, Irene, before you? So it feels like that we've kind of went through this consulting part.
Yeah.
Right?
The consulting is
Right,
helping me
and we already
optimize all
Got it.
transportation.
And we already had it in the budget and
Yeah.
and at some point, somebody told us that we should be, Ken probably made that discussion a long time ago that we should be pursuing that. So would it make sense for us to go through the 8.4, have the presentation?
As long as there's no more questions on 8.3, like. with
No, I think
consulting.
we've
Some of
exhausted
the
8.3.
questions could be
I think we go to 8.4
Okay,
and have your visitor.
yep.
Do we have to have them swear to tell the truth, the whole truth?
Yes.
Okay. You don't have to do
And we
that.
get to ask them questions, right?
Yes.
Yeah, we'll ask them
Well,
questions,
Like
yeah.
I said, I realized that I shared this very quickly with the board, the
Yeah.
8.4, but it took me several weeks to put this analysis together, working with different state agencies and cooperatives. I think this is, and I wanted to use real data of what I need to do for this year's budget. So everybody understands, I'm going to be making a request to Jim. If you want to keep the same fleet and continue going with the transportation as we have it, I need to replace 6 buses.
So I think
Right?
I think we're all kind of in agreement.
Yeah.
That the consulting project makes a lot of sense.
Okay.
Transportation is a huge budget item for us.
So let's
It
go to
makes sense, it makes sense to
8.4.
spend $15,000 to do something.
I have one more concern. So you're talking about possibly selling the buses after, before the balloon payment, which is 30%. So if the price of buses is going up 20%, but the balloon payment at the end is 30%, that doesn't make too much sense. Why aren't we looking into used 5-year-old buses then, rather than brand new buses? Because we're going to be putting our buses up for sale after 5 years anyway.
Right.
Why aren't we looking into buying some 5-year-old buses rather than leasing everything out?
Will the presentation go through
It
that?
does, but I will explain.
Okay.
5-year buses have no warranties. So your
can
maintenance
buy a warranty.
expenses, all of that are very, very high. Okay, the only way you get warranties is when you buy new. Now, with the buses, the new price is going up. The residual value on the old buses is very high right now. Okay, so let's go through 8.4 so we can explain what's going on. The cost to borrow right now is very, very low. It's the right time to do this. And what my objective is as the business administrator here is to try to get the cost of bringing buses into this district where it's almost flat year over year. Like I could say to you, look, every year I need $300,000 and I need that $300,000 to replace buses with leases, so forth and so on, and not increase it. The way we're doing it today, you're doing this. And now what's happening is it's going like this, right? Because the prices are going up and I have to replace more. We did a lot of purchasing 15 years ago. So I cannot, by state law, keep buses on the road past 15 years in the state of New Jersey.
Sure.
So if you don't mind, if we can go through 8.4,
Yep.
let's have the discussion. We could have a discussion again on the
8.4 is
25th.
all yours. Take
Okay.
it away.
So I would like to introduce Dennis. Are you on?
Oh, I was like, where are they?
Mary
He's
Ann,
muted, but
Mary Ann,
he's
could you,
on.
Mary Ann?
I'm like, there's nobody here. Who's?
I don't know what happened here. Mary Ann? Could you hear me?
He's still muted.
Yes.
Okay. Mary Ann, I'd like to have
think so.
Dennis
have to-
and
Hold
Robert
on.
be able
I
to
don't think so.
walk us through this next presentation. Dennis and Robert, if you could each introduce yourselves and explain how we've been partnering together. And then, Dennis, I think you're going to be the one that's ultimately going to give the presentation.
Correct. I'm Dennis Balladus. I'm with the Hunterdon County Educational Services Commission. You're familiar with your ESCs. We're here to give services to school districts that they can't effectively do on their own, due to size or whatever. My specialty is municipal lease purchase financing. I run bids for school districts. I developed the program, gosh, back in the 80s. I had my own company for about 17 years doing this. Then I firmly believed it belonged in the public sector to keep tax dollars in the classroom. So at that point, 10 years ago, 2011, I joined Middlesex Regional. I worked with their co-op and introduced lease purchase financing. My home district is, or my home ESC is the Hunter Ed Services Commission. I was the president of their foundation for many years before I became a public employee. I thank Tina and I thank the board for letting us come before you. I'll be presenting with Robert Nussbaum, who heads our resale program for school buses. This is a program we've been doing for quite a number of years. I routinely run bids for school districts in New Jersey for equipment, buses, computers, and such, about $40 to $50 million a year for school districts in New Jersey. Robert has been on the back end selling buses for us. We have about 140 bus fleet with the Hunter ESC, and we're routinely swapping out buses, trying to maintain lower our maintenance costs and keep our in-service buses in service rather than have them sitting in the repair shop. What we're going to do today, and the presentation that Rob and I put together, and I really do thank Rob for his marketing skills. The objectives are to replace your bus, the aging out fleet in 22, 23, 24, and beyond. Revitalize an aging and expensive to repair and maintain fleet. Lowering the average fleet age. Currently, you're about 9.5
Give me 1
years.
minute. Mary Ann, could you put up the presentation, please? Okay, go ahead, Dennis. I apologize.
Okay, Mary Ann, page 2. This is today's objectives. Replacing the budget. Okay, lowering the average fleet age. You know, we're talking about buying 5-year-old buses and putting them into your fleet as your main source of doing runs. Average age, when you'll see buses about 7, 8 years old, really start coming to need repairs. A blown engine, a blown transmission could go $18,000 to $20,000. That could be almost a lease payment for 1 year for a bus. We want to try to minimize those costs by making your maintenance a budgetable item. We want to sell the buses while they have a higher residual value, rather than going out 15-year-old buses and only getting $1,500 for them. Objective is to get new drivers, increase your driver retention, get more reliable and newer vehicles in your fleet, and overall cost savings. Now let's go over how we're going to do this. Next page. Currently, your projections, and we did this with Tina's assistance, would impossible to do. What you plan on purchasing for the next 3 years, 22, 23, and 24. Each of the prices that we've gotten in quotes. We've extended, the quotes are good for the 22 year, and I'll say that through this presentation. We used interest rates and prices that were for this year. We did not factor in any increases for the future. So we have a baseline that can all compare apples to apples on. Your outright purchases for 2022 would be basically 5 54 passenger buses and a 124 passenger bus, $776,000. In 2023, you're looking at purchasing $488,000 worth of buses. And in 2024, you're looking at purchasing an additional $803,000 worth of buses. And those are buses that are coming out due to age. You know, you talked about the 15-year limitation on this. And yes, buses have to be pulled off the road at 15 years. Knowing that we have a 15-year limitation, we can do stuff with leasing, which I'll explain further. So over the next 3 years, you're going to be purchasing, next slide, please. Marianne. We're looking at $2,068,000.
Dennis, may I
Yes.
just interject with one thing?
Please do it, feel free.
So a question came from one of the members, and I'm sorry, I didn't introduce myself. I'm Robert Nussbaum. I'm with not only the Hunterdon County Educational Services Commission, where I run the resale program. I've actually been a classroom marketing teacher for 28 years, and I'm a transportation coordinator for my district, which is a regional district serving Morris and Sussex counties. So I have a lot of familiarity on all sides of this. Dennis is by far the most knowledgeable district. Again, we're employees from Hunterdon County Educational Services. We're district government employees in this respect as well. Dennis is the authority, in my opinion, on municipal lease purchase. Now, there was, just to address the used versus new, we, through Hunterdon County in 2019, Township of Ocean District bought $357,000 of used vehicles when we sold Lakewood's fleet. And that was 3 54 passenger buses, model year 2017, a 24 passenger, 24 passenger 2017 buses, and a 2010 wheelchair vehicle. Well, just so you know, the price of used vehicles, the amount of inflation has gone, it's through the roof. It's very, very significantly increased, which is a benefit if you're looking at a balloon note finance lease program, but which we'll get to when Dennis gets that slide. But just to give an idea, 6 used vehicles were purchased by your district for almost worth $357,000. So, and the price of those vehicles today would be significantly higher at that age. So anyway, Dennis, I just wanted to interject
Okay.
that.
So we know you're coming up, the cash sale is going to be $2 million over the next 3 years. There are a couple of ways to approach it. We're talking about the traditional lease purchase. Granted, lease purchase for buses, you're allowed by state law for buses to go out 10 years. But pragmatically, as a person that conducts bids around the state, it's very hard for me to get any bidders to bid on transactions longer than 7 years for buses. Although we have the ability to go 10. So I normally do a 5-year lease purchase with payments in advance. On the 3, if you look at this page, next page, Marianne, please. These pages represent what you would pay, what your payment structure would be for the next 3 years if we did the financing. In purchasing on a traditional lease, you're $776,000. You'd be paying $160,000 a year for 5 years. For the 2023 transaction of $488,000, looking at $100,000, $101,000 a year per year for 5 years. And in 2024, you're going to be buying $803,000 worth of buses. So your annual payments on that are 1.66%. We use a conservative rate of 1.55%. It's higher than the rates we've gotten in the in bids, but I'm taking into consideration where the Fed has been saying for this year's money. So I'm using a higher than regular amount for the higher interest rate. Okay, so if you do the traditional lease purchase the next 3 years, your annual payments for 23, 24, 22, 23, 24 are $427,000, which is less than $1,640,000 than you have to pay for an outright purchase for the same buses. Let's go to the next page. The balloon payment program.
Hold on 1 second, Dennis. So that would mean
Sure.
you would get 467 each year as you build the buses up. So
Correct.
currently, right now, our budget has always had between $300,000 and $350,000 in there for bus outright purchase. Okay.
Correct.
Now, we know we have to add all of these additional buses over the next several years. So at least you're streamlining the payment to this 467 if you do a traditional lease.
Yes.
Okay.
Now,
Go
a
ahead.
couple of years ago, Rob and I got together with some of the bus dealers and talked about adopting the automobile leasing model for school buses. In this situation, we took the model that said, make the school district not only the lessee, but the lessor. The variable is you get the price of your money. If you're familiar with an auto lease, and it was addressed earlier in this discussion when you're doing 8.3, there was concern about the balloon payment. And we have set a balloon payment of 30%. Now, when I talked to all the manufacturers out there, when we did put this payment program together, what is the residual value of a 5-year-old bus? What's it worth a party, a contractor, another school district purchasing that bus today in 5 years? They still have 10 years value. We're looking at anywhere between 55 to 60%, 65% of original value of the bus that it's going to be sold for in 5 years. Now, Rob, can you attest to that? You've done more of these sales.
Yes, it's not just a concept, there's proof of concept because we've done this in our own fleet many times. We had provided South Brunswick Public Schools as a reference to Tina, and I believe, Tina, I think you were going to be speaking with or virtually meeting with the BA and assistant BA over there. We're going into our third round of selling their vehicles that have reached the end, and we're selling prior to the balloon, and they're thrilled because they're paying significantly less when they're buying the vehicle. They're getting the good piece, like while they're under warranty. They're not doing engines, they're not doing transmissions, they're not fixing air conditioning systems, they're not doing rust repair to frames. They're simply doing oil changes, they're doing minor repairs, they're operating them with their name on the side, titled to them as if it's their own. But at the end of the 5 years, we're selling it, the residual's 30%, we're getting them 50, 60 plus %. They're taking that equity now, rolling into their next lease payment of their next schedule, and they're paying significantly less. They're paying less for maintenance, and they're paying less for upkeep. They're paying less for repairs, and it's worked out very well. But they're a local district to you that is doing it. We have several others throughout the state that have adopted it, and now we're getting to the point that we're at the 5, 6, and 7 year point with them to sell these vehicles, and it's been a phenomenal program.
Yeah, Rob, we were in charge. I found out about Lakewood getting rid of their buses when they called up, and I put Rob in touch with Lakewood, the state monitor in Lakewood, and we turned it over to a auction. His ability to sell. And Rob, those 68 buses, what was your estimate for the sale of the buses?
Well, they had a consultant come in that provided them with an estimate of just over what they owed on their vehicles. They owed money on almost all the fleet. And I think he came in at like 2.2 million. And I told them, I said that's insane. They're worth significantly more. You have a lot of equity to be captured here. And I gave them a price of 3.4 million, 3.4 and change. When the sale was over, and again, Ocean bought some of these vehicles. When the sale was over, I was off by $16,000 with my estimate. They got 16,000 more than I thought they would, not 160,000. So in the end, after everything was done, after their lease payments were paid, their lease purchases were paid off, they ended up clearing over $1 million of equity and they were ready to walk away based upon what some bus consultants had told them. And again, they asked, well, why should we go with you? I said, well, we're a government agency. We operate under the same rules that you do. And we don't want you having problems with an auditor with anything you do. We don't want you having any issues where there's anything questionable. We operate dotting all the I's, crossing all the T's. And we've been doing this for a long time. And we have a large fleet. And it's, we're generally pretty spot on when we come up with these programs, and we've tried them ourselves first. So
Let's compare the three acquisition methods. Mary Ann, let's get the next page. This is what we're talking about to start off with. Here's the comparison, one-time purchase, and you can go right across to see what you have. What are your annual outflows for the next 3 years? If you buy all the buses in the next 3 years, you're going to pay outright purchase, 2.68 million. If you do the regular traditional lease purchase, your annual payments are 427,000. And if you lose the balloon payment, it's 309,000. So there it keeps within your budget that you have. And this is, again, conservative. Let's go to the next page. Getting started. Okay, Rob, you want to start on this one?
Sure. Well,
Yeah.
unlike an automotive lease, when you go to a dealership and you negotiate your monthly payment and everything else, the vehicles are titled and registered, and they're in the name of Township of Ocean. It's your vehicle for as long as you want it to be. And if you decide at the end, hey, they're worth a lot more, and we decide we want to keep them, then you can, but it really doesn't make sense under this program because the residual is so much lower than what the market value is going to be. You're going to get the good piece of the bus. You're going to get the first 5 years. And for the past couple of years now, this will be going into the second year that your business administrator is putting the extended warranties. That is a must. Just like cars have gotten more complicated, buses have gotten more complicated, and there's really no major expense for repair. I understand you have very, very expensive repairs that you're making now on vehicles that are 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 plus years old. And the worst part of it is you can have a bus that you're retiring and you're selling on Gov Deals that you're going to get $1,300, $1,400, $1,500 for. I found one, actually, I regularly look at those sites, and I cited one in an earlier slide. That bus could have had $30,000, $40,000 worth of repairs in the past few years. One engine is $26,000. A transmission is 10 plus. Air conditioning systems are easily $8,000 to $10,000 to replace the systems. You're going to utilize the bus to its fullest in those first 5 years. And after you get into the 5th year of the cycle and you then can take some of that equity out, your next purchases become lower, significantly lower, which Dennis is going to show us on the next slide. Your average fleet age is close to 10 years now. It would be less than 3. It would be just under 3 once this program were in full swing. And Dennis, could we skip to the next slide so you could address what happens with that equity?
Yeah. This is what happens with the equity. When we go with the lease purchase, the equity offsets the future lease purchases. This is a system. Rob, we have, there's an established market. The bus contractors, other school districts such as yours, there's a ready market for 5-year-old buses. There's not many of them out on the market. So they do command a high price. For the purchaser, they still have 10 years of useful life there. That's valuable to somebody who doesn't have to worry about high cost of maintenance. If you're a bus contractor, you have your own maintenance staff. You're not using a prevailing wage to repair. They're not using prevailing wage to repair the buses. So let's look at what the equity would be. The 54 passenger today, 137,269.80. These are the quotes that Tina received for a total of 549,000. Conservative value at 50% at the end of the 5 years is 274,000. The balloon payment for that is only 164,000. So your equity on those buses, 109,000. The second 54, that's 150,000 with the integrated child seats. You got 30,000 equity built in. The 24 passenger with integrated child seat, 76,000. You have $23,000 built in. The balloon payment for all these, this program is $232,000. Conservative estimated value, and I use conservative because we haven't seen 50% come in. It's usually 55 to 65%. At
Lately, it's
50%
been more.
value is
Lately, we're hitting over
388,000. Your balloon is 232. You clear 155,000 equity. You've you've leveraged your fleet acquisition, and your bus payments become part of a return on your investment. Next page, please. In the future, you look at the buses. Now, what happens after the 2022 is sold? Say we replace them with the same buses, 5 more buses, or 6 buses. We take it $776,000, but we take the $155,000 equity and reduce the cost of the purchase of the next set of buses. The balloon payment in 2022 was $116,000. When you apply the equity from the 2022 to 2027, the payment goes down for the 6 buses, down to $84,000 a year. So that's an annual savings from the first balloon set to the second balloon set 5 years hence of $31,000 a year. The program is proven. As Rob said, we are both employees of the Hunterdon County Ed Services Commission. We're government employees. We're not a for-profit company. We want to see tax dollars saved. We want to see tax dollars employed in the classroom, not to be sent out to banks, not to be spent on repairing buses, but to put teachers in a classroom in education with students. That's our goal. We brought something here to you tonight that can effectuate that goal in reducing your cost, reducing your maintenance costs severely, helping with driver retention, and helping, having the community say, oh, our kids are running around and we have good buses now. And our school board's smart because it's costing us less than we had before. And that's basically what we're trying to push across here. Rob, you want to chime in on what your effects are with the, you addressed your resale. But
Well, I could say, I guess the best, my final thing to say is we've done this with other districts. So South Brunswick's one, that's an example. Morris School District is now at the point that we're reselling their vehicles. We just resold 3 of Morris School District's vehicles that they were thinking they were going to get maybe $20,000, $25,000 a piece for these vehicles, and we doubled it for them, what they were expecting to get. We have coming up from them towards the end of this year when their new buses arrive, a large group of vehicles to sell, and we already have clients of ours, other school systems, we have bus dealerships, we have private contractors. When you have a vehicle that's 5 years old, see, it's aged 5 years, but model years, because the buses, for example, that Tina is going to be taking delivery of this year, if your board approves the purchase, and it's a purchase or lease purchase or balloon note purchase, they're going to be 2023 model year buses that you're getting in 2022. When this program is up, the buses are really 3 to 4 model years old. They've been on the road for 5 full years. You have private contractors that see a lot of value in those. You have bus dealerships, as I said, and you have other districts. So I have already districts looking feverishly and private contractors asking me, what do you have coming up? When's it coming up? Because they're making their plans. I'm going to go after some of those Morris School District buses. I'm going to go after some of those South Brunswicks again. And the demand far outweighs the supply.
Okay.
Yeah.
Is
And
this
when Rob puts these programs together, when he sells them, he starts campaigning the buses at the beginning of the 5th year. So you see on this last page here, these are some of the marketing pieces you use in the upper right-hand corner. He'll put together these brochure, these flyers, send them out to the contractors, send them out to the BAs and the transportation coordinators around the state. And it stirs up that interest ahead of time. What we've been relying now is throw a bus against to Gov Deals or whatever else, you're selling scrap. This is a concerted effort to remarket the buses where they have a quantifiable value after 5 years. And we've proven that the rate that we get does bring in enough money to not only pay the 30% balloon, but put an appreciable amount of money down for the next replacement bus.
This is great.
Okay, so Dennis, give it 1 second. So
Are
Jeffrey.
are we, are you guys done with your presentation? Are we good?
Yeah, this is the
Yeah.
last slide.
Okay, great.
Yeah.
Well, first, Dennis and Robert, I really want to thank you both for coming. I think, and kind of enlightening us a little bit here. I like to, let me just start with one question here. Is there a reason why everybody isn't doing this?
We've been slowly bringing it on.
Yeah.
A lot of times, well, we've been bringing it on slowly with the districts we want to work with, and we've seen a success. You know, a lot of times VAs are resistant to change. And it wasn't until the proof is in the pudding. This is not just a financial contrivance. This actually,
This is new for school districts.
It's a
There's no doubt.
systemic-
yeah,
about
it's
it.
new for school
In a
districts,
corporate
but
environment, this is old school.
Because I've been, when I was doing the software for schools, we were involved with busing and watching the problems that
Right.
people had actually leasing busing.
Right.
So this is definitely
This is a
a,
lot more work
Yeah.
on the finance office,
Yes,
because like you
right.
said, you're the leasee and the leaseor. You have to make sure that you're balancing that correctly to bring the money in.
Yeah.
The concern that I have is what we've done over the past, what I need to do over the next 3 years, that you see the prices go from like 800,000 down to 400,000, then back up to 600,000. You know, we only get 2% increment, right? So I have to be able to manage those costs. And what I'm seeing is a lot more maintenance expenses being incurred because our fleet is older.
Yeah.
So we have to do something different. I'm not saying what
No, I
I mean,
think-
personally, I would do the balloon payment, but you know, I understand that this is very different for a school and we need to take a look at it. That's why I wanted to get it out in front of everybody, let you digest it. If there's more conversations that we need to have towards the end of the month, you know, let's do that. But right now, the lead time on these buses are close to a year. And I have one bus company, because we did go out to do bids. I'm holding 5 buses as they come in because 6 buses, because we're aging them out. If I don't have buses, I can't do the transportation.
I think just kind of being succinct in this, just you know, if I'm not, somebody will correct me, I'm sure. But, you know, we're gonna look at this part of the budget exercise, right? Is that what this is kind of?
Right, but in other words, I have to determine what I'm putting into that budget.
Yes.
And if I say to Jim, I need $700 and something thousand, that's gonna, you know, then there's priorities that I'm gonna have to make against educational expenses to be able to balance out.
Leading up to this, I
Right.
think the thing that I would probably be most concerned about is what's the risk? So that, you know, what's the risk to us as a district? What's the risk to us of having this be a financial disaster? Like somehow you probably, to me, it would be kind of, and I don't, this isn't a pop quiz, so you don't, so I'm not, I don't.
You're
really-
not expecting.
I'm not
us to
expecting
do
an
it,
answer
yeah.
right now. It's probably more to present us with what the risk is around this, so we understand what we're weighing. That would be, so I think all the logic, to me, the logic sounded great, sounded smart, sounded like financial engineering. Everybody wins to some level, but we probably just need to know the risk of what happens.
And that's why I started to talk to the other districts that they're partnering with. And basically what it is you have to be able to manage it. You need to be looking at this, being ahead of it, marketing the buses as they're coming to that 5-year term. Dennis, you know, Robert, would you like to add any of your other experiences?
Before you do that,
Okay.
so the one walk away, and maybe all of you, I don't know if, can I get an agreement that maybe we want Denise to come back, not Denise, Tina to come
Dennis.
back with what the risks are
Yeah,
in doing this? Is that?
absolutely.
I can basically address that now. I mean, I've been doing
And
this
we
for,
also asked.
Yeah, I think honestly,
Yeah.
I will, but honestly, Dennis, I probably need Tina to be the one to kind of present it, so.
It's not a
we're
problem.
gonna- I think Tina's our person on
Yeah,
this.
Not an issue.
Sure, who is, was that Shwanda? Did you want to ask a question?
I think Natalie had her hand up before me,
Okay,
and then I'll go
Natalie.
after Natalie.
Sure, great, thank you. Natalie?
Hi, okay, thanks for the presentation. I'm familiar with these types of initiatives. I've recently implemented it in my day job. So I support what you're doing here, but I do have a question on slide 7. About the money, the language, the language used to me is not clear. For the first option, you call it a one-time cash purchase. So over
Correct.
3 years, we'd spend 2.68 million. The
Right.
next, you are called annual payments. So
Yes.
is that 427 every year and 309
Yes.
every year?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, so that's a little misleading, I think, in the presentation, because over the course of 3 years, we're not comparing 427 to 2 million. We're comparing 1.3 to 2 million, correct?
No, because you're adding the $803,000 one, the $166,000 in the third year. Okay, because you have a 22.
Okay,
acquisition.
but still, so it's 160, the second year is 272, and the third year is whatever that is, that math,
166.
427. Yep.
66, right.
Yeah.
Well, is it 166 plus 101 plus 160 in the third year is what I'm asking you?
Yes, in the
Yes.
third year, that would be it.
So the
So it's
first year is,
160, the first year is 160, the second year is 160 plus 101.
Because
The
you're
third
adding
year-
additional, you're
I
adding
understand,
additional four
I
buses.
understand, I'm just making sure, because that is not how it's laid out here. The way, if you look at the bottom and you have an outflow comparison for a 3-year period, it's made to look as if it's 2 million versus 400 versus 300, and that's not in fact the case. I
We
support
meant-
this,
we
I'm
meant
just checking the
cumulative-
math.
We're doing the cumulative cash flows for, okay, yes, every year. If we could probably
The
do.
way,
yes.
you're not comparing 2 million to 427,000. You're comparing 2 million to approximately 800,000. I wanna
Right,
make
money
sure my
coming out of your
fellow-
district, we're trying to, one of what we found.
Wait,
over the years-
please let me finish my statement,
Really?
okay? I want to make sure that my fellow members are clear on that, because again, the way this is written, it is a little misleading. I support the initiative, but please be clear on the money. It's 2 million to purchase. It is not 400,000 over 3 years. It is approximately 800,000 over 3 years. Just making sure the members are clear.
Hmm?
Dennis, I'm not sure I understand.
If the question is, I think, Rob, when we put down the total for the total acquisition, we should put out the annual, what would the annual cost would be for the leases for those years. That's what.
So over 3 years, it is a total of 427,000 under traditional.
In the third year.
In the third year, but there's
In the
still going to
third-
be,
There's still the
Yes.
second year cost and the first year cost. That's what I'm
Right.
saying.
but isn't that
That's not-
included in the,
That is not how it's written.
Yes, you're right,
okay, we'll be happy to fix
to adjust
I-
that.
Yeah,
But
absolutely.
it's, yeah. But you can see the difference between the 166,000 outlay per year and the.
It's still a
427,000.
savings. As I said, I'm supporting it, but we just need to be
Yeah.
clear at what we're looking at here.
Yeah, we
Yeah, well,
absolutely.
what the
could
whole
fix
idea
this.
is, school districts live and die by cash flow. Administrators, and the idea of a leasing program, when we initiate leasing programs around the state, the idea is to keep the budget area, say in transportation or technology, level. No peaks or valleys. You have a peak, a spike, you gotta come up with cash.
Yeah, Dennis, I don't
Cash
think,
money,
I think we're all understanding it, Dennis. I think
Okay.
Natalie's just pointing out that the delta is not 2068 and 427, it's 2068 and some other number
Right.
greater than 427. So I think that's what Natalie's pointing out. So I don't think I think we got the gist
Mhm.
on that other thing. Shawanda, would you like to ask a question?
Yes, it's 2 questions. The delivery timeframe and the resale timeframe on average.
Delivery timeframe, Rob, I'm gonna tell you when I talked to Paul and the different salespeople, they're looking at buses ordered now that are not stock, potentially December of 2022, if not January of 2023. The stock is what they have in stock. They're trying to
Oh.
allocate now for those
Yes, well-
situations where school districts are aging out. 5 buses that Tina has reserved for you are those buses. We're not involved with sale of buses.
Well,
Rob?
I think a very big concern that a lot of districts have, and I think this is what, I can't see names because the screen I have is only showing the agenda and I see Dennis's face. But the board member, I believe, was it Natalie? Who's the
Yep.
board member that asked the question? I'm sorry. So a lot of districts have this concern, and whenever we sell vehicles for a district through our resale program, we always have it's very clearly in the bid packets and everything else that the old vehicles will not be released until the new district's new vehicles have arrived. We put Lakewood's vehicles up for sale, for example, 68 of them in April. And the buyers couldn't take delivery of them until after the last day of school in June. Other districts are waiting for buses to come in, and there is a caveat and there's contingencies written directly into our bids and our sales, saying that you will be responsible for buying the vehicle at the time and paying for it, paying a deposit ahead of time, meaning the buyer. And your district, Ocean, would not have any interruption in the service for your district. The old buses would not go anywhere until your new buses arrive.
I
So
think
in this case-
Shawanda may be asking. how
Oh,
long-
Shawanda, I'm
I
sorry.
think she might be asking, how long does it take to sell the old buses once we have the new buses? Is that what, were you wondering that, Shawanda?
Yes, and I just want to make sure, so if we purchase today, we would not receive a new bus or new buses until December or
No.
January. Is that what you
No.
said?
No, the new buses, right now, there are buses that Tina has on hold with your bus vendor. And-
There's buses that are coming in this summer, and of course, they reached out to us and said, do you want us to put a hold on these vehicles? And I said, absolutely. I do not know how I'm purchasing them yet, but if I did not put the hold on them, I would not have buses come September.
Correct. Those are if you were ordered today, sure, without having stock buses in place, to go for a new bus today, to order it with the supply chain issues, you wouldn't look to delivery until December of 22.
Or January or February.
Correct.
But the buses that we're discussing here, that were quoted here from H.A. Hart in this case, those buses have been scheduled for production or are already in production, and they're being held at this point for your district, and they will be ready for summer delivery, early to midsummer.
It's just how we're gonna buy them.
Right.
Okay,
I have a quick
Sure,
one.
Margaret.
if That's okay, Jeff.
sure.
Okay, so my only question really is, I know the airlines went to this a couple of years ago, kind of leasing instead of buying as much. If we know, if we ended up going to leasing and we knew how many we were going to need this year, next year, and the year after, are you able to negotiate a price to do that?
No.
No.
No. Let me explain this. Okay. What we're doing is actually, when you talk about leasing versus financing, when we're talking about a municipal lease purchase, in essence, for a school district or a government agency, it is a financing. It's the idea of to acquire the ownership of the piece of equipment. It is not a rental per se, where you do not acquire ownership. There's no way to insulate future purchases. The bus dealers don't determine the prices for the equipment. It's determined by the manufacturer. And the manufacturers do not have any say within the dealer's territory. And so the buses are fixed price to the dealers, and the dealers add their profit onto that. So there's not much of a change. So if the bus manufacturer wants to change in the 23 or 24 model year, they will change it and they'll pass that along to their vendors. And because the vendors buy these buses, they put them in, they both do stock orders. H.A. Hart may do 116 buses for stock.
Okay, I think you answered Ms. McGovern's question, right? Thanks. Irene, would you like to?
Since we're talking about financing, when you have a lease, of course, you talk about credit, interest rates, and annual mileage. how will all of those things affect our district?
Okay,
Our credit, what the interest rate will be used, a very low interest rate. Interest rates are set to go up in the new year. And are we set on our annual mileage if we have a lease?
okay, understand that this is not mileage dependent. It is annual, it is a number of years dependent. We started talking about this. Said the school districts, school buses in New Jersey have a useful life, a statutory useful life of 15 years. Okay, school buses usually don't get run into the ground 200,000-300,000 miles a year. They're not transit buses. And Rob, you can speak to the average mileage of a bus.
Well, there is, with the lease program, you could put as few or as many miles on as you want. The big thing is you want to make sure that you're within your extended warranty, which is 150,000 miles within the 5 years. The buses from South Brunswick, for example, they generally have 60, 70,000 miles on them when we sell them. The Morris School District buses have between 20 and 40. Newark's buses we sold for them last year had 17 to 20,000 miles on them. So you're not restricted with this program. You could use a bus going up and down the parkway on longer routes. You could use it on more local routes. It really doesn't matter. The big thing you want to stay within is your 150,000 mile warranty. So that way you don't have any big costs during the time. It's not like a car lease where you're limited to 12,000 miles a year, 1,000 miles a month, or 15 or 16.5. There's no, there is no limit on the mileage. Obviously, go ahead.
Rob, may I interject? When
Yes.
when an automobile lease comes in, the balloon payment is not a balloon payment to you. You have an option to purchase. But when they want to guarantee the residual, they don't want to take a loss. So they know if they give you 10,000 miles a year, after 3 years, the car's gonna have 30,000 miles on it. They'll be able to say it'll be worth X number of dollars. Now, models and change, different manufacturers change. So there's a lot of different variables with an automobile lease.
Okay, well,
It's a very,
that's
very
good.
narrow realm.
That's good. I don't mean to cut you off, but I think you got your answer. And I think, Tina, you probably should, just make sure we understand the whole scope of these things, right? If interest rates are locked in and all
We
that
have
stuff.
5 buses that we're selling now.
Yeah.
They have anywhere from 130,000 to 150,000 miles,
But how old are they?
15 years. We
They're
have to take-
15
We
years.
have to take them.
Do we have any 5-year buses that we know the mileage is on?
We run about anywhere from like 30 to 50,000, the 30 to 50,000 miles.
On our 5-year-old buses?
Yeah.
Okay. Anybody else have any questions that they want to ask? Anybody
Can
remote?
I- One statement about the interest rate. The interest rates are a function of bidding. What I do is bid the lease purchase. I craft a bid for every district that we deal with on behalf of the district. The credit of the school districts is the credit of the school district. They know that the school buses represent excellent collateral for these lenders. You cannot pledge collateral in a lease purchase. You do that, you pledge in a bond. It's an annual non-appropriation situation where it's coming out of the annual appropriation. So the lenders want to make sure that the collateral is there. It's good collateral that should something happen to you as a district, or they have to, repossess the bus, they know they can sell it and come out whole.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you. Got it. We have one more question.
I just have a quick question for Tina. Being that this entire discussion is about like the age of our fleet, if we are told by these consultants in a separate matter that we're having assess our transportation needs, will there ever be a chance when we say we have too many buses? Because
That's what that
Yes.
first assessment is going to help us do. Correct.
but we want to make a decision on buying more before we find out what we
have a
need.
fleet of over, we have a fleet of over 50 buses. Okay, so just these over the next 3 years, we could start this program this year to do the leases and change our mind the following year and not go into a lease.
Okay, gotcha.
So yeah, we can change our mind, but I have to determine how we want to buy the ones that are coming up for next year.
I got it. Thank you.
And I can understand that, Tina, but we're also waiting to do a demographic survey.
That's all coming in,
So
correct?
you really don't know what our enrollment's going to be over the next 5 years.
Well, right now, I'm assuming flat to slightly down based on what I'm seeing. Right,
We
but,
already have a study,
but,
yeah.
but remember, we're looking to expand pre-K, which brings a completely different dynamic when we're talking about transportation.
Different buses.
Different buses, more stops at individual houses, not on corners.
Right.
So all of that is going to factor into all of this. That's why I'm saying I do think we need a strategic plan on transportation, knowing where the district is looking to go.
Great, I second that motion.
Okay, I'm just, you know, like I'm
No, I'm
trying to do
serious.
all the
I'm
right
being very
things.
serious with you, yes.
Yeah.
John, you do have a question?
Pass.
Yes.
It's enough for today.
I just, I
You'll hold your question for
question,
another
I question
time.
if this is a valid question, but I need to ask it because it's,
Sure.
what if all these school districts that are saying, that aren't on board with this yet, 5 years from now are like, no, we only purchase balloon payment buses, right? And then now we're in the spot where going to resell, like, I understand that the concept of finances is that there will always be a market for an item. But I worry that like all of a sudden more school districts are going to begin to adopt this program. And then when we go to
Okay.
sell in 5 years, they're gonna be like, no, we don't buy used buses because that's the way of the
That's
past.
why we have to go to lease.
Okay, can I bring up a point here?
Go ahead.
The real market for these are the contractors. I mean, the schools are now picking them up first. Because Rob exposes the buses for sale to the school districts first.
Okay.
However, think about what the economic driver is.
I get it.
Contractors need buses.
Yeah.
For them, it's one of their costs, the cost of equipment on top of it.
So it's not just selling to schools, you're selling to other
And Tina answered
private
me, yep.
providers and public
And if they can-
providers where.
And if a
there is
contractor can get a
line.
bus cheaper, it's gonna affect his ability to increase payments of drivers.
Yeah.
And and he has the ability to fix the buses.
Well, I just want to say this was very helpful.
Yeah.
And thanks for enlightening us. And
And
Tina,
if
really
there's
thanks for
more
arranging
questions,
this.
just send them to me and then we'll always follow up. So right now, the takeaways, I did hear on this one, you know, we want to, try to quantify the risks and what they are. And then, Natalie's point is she wants me to change that one slide so that it's more comparative, so
Yeah.
everybody understands.
Right.
The 8.3, it's getting references and resumes so that the board understands. So right now, those are the takeaways that I'm taking. If there's anything else, just send me a note and I'll make sure that we address it. This way you have it.
Outstanding. Very nicely done, Tina. Thank you.
Okay.
And Dennis and Robert, thank you very much for presenting to us and fielding our questions and enlightening us on this process. Thank you very
And I'll
much.
talk to you
Thank you.
both tomorrow.
Okay.
Thank you so
Thank
much.
you
don't
all.
have to stay on.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Okay.
Bye.
We have any other points of that? We have a public notice cooperation? What is that?
Yes, so this is where every year you have to put in the paper all the professional services that you utilize, and you have to announce that you've given them the award. And so for auditors, attorneys, things like that. What we do in Monmouth County is we use a cooperative and all the school districts put it in together. So that's what this basically is.
Great.
We
Okay.
do that every year.
That's not new.
Nothing new.
Great. And
8.6 is
8.6, yeah.
no. So my understanding, working with Doug, is that we need to join, or he wants to go into this particular professional service for a student that needs services on feeding and oral monitoring and training.
Mhm.
So this is new for the district. And it's, this is basically $160 an hour, but we don't know how many hours it's going to involve yet.
Okay, would you be able to easily not track that or give us some
Yes,
expectation?
absolutely.
Okay,
Absolutely. So once we get into the contract, once the assessment happens, then they will provide a proposal of what they believe they
Oh,
need to do
outstanding.
for the child.
great.
So
outstanding.
this is just basically saying this is the organization that we want to work with. They're saying it's $160 an hour, and then the special services group will work with this professional service to come up with a game plan for the student.
Oh, great, outstanding,
Okay?
outstanding. Okay,
Question
sure.
on the feeding therapist. So it's my understanding that that's not something typically done in public
Correct.
school.
Correct.
Why are we doing that and not outsourcing? Like not, why? I don't know how to ask the question, but I would think this student would be out of district if there's that level of physical need. That
Not always. It
Right.
depends a lot on the cognitive ability in terms of where the student's able to, if we are able to provide the academic program. So if we're able to provide the academic program, then the student would remain in district and we would have to provide, the other services.
So this is a new student? We've never had this come up before. So it's a new to the district student?
I don't know that I'm not sure if it's a new student to the district. It would seem logical that that's the case. I'd have to look into it further, but, this would be more likely to be a new student to us than someone who evolved into this situation.
My understanding was that this was brand new. I did not ask if it was a new student, but it's a brand new program that we're trying to implement. And the student is
It
in-house.
really isn't unusual for
Right, it
students in
Yes.
others, particularly larger school districts who are
Yeah.
working to keep students in district
Yeah.
to have these kinds of services provided.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks for that explanation. Okay, thank you, Natalie, for the financial management resources services section. Let's go to instructional education student activities, Ms. Gilman.
Mr. Weinstein, there are two items for instruction this evening. 9.1, professional development. Move to approve the attached memorandum dated January 5th, 2022. Staff professional development activities in accordance with District Policy 6471 and NJAC 6A 23A-7. The attendance at said activities is fiscally prudent and will promote the delivery of instruction and/or will further the efficient operation of the district. Reimbursement for travel and related expenses shall be according to the Department of the Treasury guidelines in NJOMB Circular 06-02 and A-87. Files attached. 9.2, NJDOE English Language Learner, our 3-year plan for 2021 through 2024. Board of Education Administration will discuss the NJDOE English Language Learner 3-year plan for 2021 through 2024. Copy of the plan is attached.
I think we can just get a second on 9.1, right? We can vote on that in
9.1,
discussion.
yes. And then I think what
Oh.
Kelly was going to talk to 9.2.
If there's questions.
Yeah, I
Did you
just have a quick
second that,
question.
Alex, on 9.1?
Yeah.
second first.
Yeah, I didn't know
was-
she seconded it.
was Alex.
Alex
Second was
She said
Alex.
that, yeah.
sorry.
Oh, sure.
I guess she did.
Oh, I think that's what.
I had a question,
And then she said she has a question. So,
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Which do we do first?
If you have any questions on 9.1.
I do. I do have questions on 9.1. Thank you for adding the positions of these folks, because I don't know who half of our staff is, so it's really awesome to see that. I think it's awesome to see our staff presenting at places. So can we get, whether it's half a year, not, I think at the end of the year would kind of be like pointless because it could have happened 8 months ago. But I'd be curious to hear what some of the titles of these presentations are. I think that's awesome. So,
Sure.
okay, so there's that. And we constantly see it, so I think it's great that we're presenting. And then the Nurtured Heart training, once Ms. Connolly and Ms. Conti are trained, are they gonna be training others? Or is this just for them?
Train the trainer training.
Okay, perfect. That's all I needed.
That's the Rutgers program. that we're
Right.
talking
Mhm.
about.
Anybody remote have anything they want to ask? Because I can't see necessarily everybody.
On one.
Nope.
Call the roll.
Okay. I think we can take a vote on 9.1.
Okay, great. Mrs. Beal,
Yes.
Ms. Gillen,
Yes,
Ms. Hayes,
Yes.
Mr. McCarthy,
Yes.
Mrs. McGovern,
Yes.
Ms. Perlamus.
Yes.
Mrs. Tortorella,
Yes.
Mr. Weinstein.
Yes.
Motion carries.
I don't believe there's anything on, thank you very much, Ms. Gilman. I don't think there's anything on, I'm sorry, 9.2, we want to have a discussion, sorry.
yes,
sorry.
I
So-
had a question and I guess Ms. Weldon is on and
Yeah.
perhaps could answer. For number 41,
Well, before we started, did Ms. Kelly or Jim, would you like to say anything about the report or about this? Or
Well,
did
I'll
you
just
say-
say, and Kelly, you can add to it.
Kelly,
This
could
this
you-
is
could you speak? Are you
Yeah,
able to?
can you hear me? Yes.
Yeah,
Yeah.
now we can hear you. I was gonna say.
Yeah.
Is there anything you'd like to say before this?
So I did want to just clarify that this is not exactly what gets submitted to the state. The state asks us to answer these questions on their portal, but they also ask that we put them in writing to put before the board. So it won't look exactly like this. And in some cases, and I think maybe Ms. Gilman, this is going to be your question. In some cases, these are a drop-down menu, and this is the answer choice that we must select. And so you're seeing it that way because that is the answer that best fits what we do.
I thought as much, Ms. Weldon. Thank you very much. My question then, okay, and I'll skip over number 41 because the drop down was probably other, and that's what we put other. But I'm just wondering why we answered no to no common planning time for the ELL and the gen ed teacher. I would think that would be a very successful and forward-thinking way to have both the ELL teacher and the gen ed teacher make the experience better for their students. Maybe some PD after school or.
Certainly those teachers do consult with one another, but to schedule into the master schedule of all 5 schools, that co-planning time would be very, very difficult to do. Certainly though, we've made a major push over the last few years to provide more training to general education teachers in the best possible ways to teach their English learners.
Thank you. Thank you.
Okay, anybody remote have any questions they'd like to ask? Okay, I don't see anybody. Anybody have it? Ms. Hayes?
Just quick questions, Ms. Weldon. Does the state say anything like, we didn't like your answer for number 52, we want you to change it? Or do we just submit this and they approve yea or nay, or do they actually give us some kind of feedback?
I believe that we just submit this. We have to submit it on time. This time around, I will say that many of our answers and most of the state struggled a little bit with this plan because it's supposed to be on the most recent year of assessment data. But in some cases, our most recent year of assessment data was 2018-19 school year.
Mhm.
So I believe that they're really looking for us to get this information in. The state themselves have a federal requirement to gather some of this information and report out on it. I think if something did not match up with other documentation that we've submitted, like a bilingual waiver or something like that, if there was something in conflict, then yes, usually those types of things are flagged and get sent back to us. But as long as everything looks to be compliant, usually we get just the approval for submitting on time.
Okay, my last question is there any way to share some of this information with our bilingual parent committee? And obviously it would have, I would assume, be translated. Like, here's what we're doing in the district in case they need a refresher, in case they didn't know some of these things.
Mr. Emick works very closely with a parent advisory group and does try to, give them the information that would best help them with the education of their children. But certainly, I think we could share some of this information. Some of it is very, education,
like lingo, yeah,
language that might be more confusing, but not that we could not share. We certainly could, but we try to really react and respond to what we feel our parents are asking for and what they need. But certainly I can make that suggestion to him for his next meeting.
Thank you.
Okay, great. Anybody else? Okay, super. Thank you again, Ms. Gilman.
Welcome.
I don't think there's anything on 10.0, so we're going to move on negotiation. So we're going to go to personnel and Ms. Palamas.
Sure. I'd like to make a motion to move items 11.1 through 11.5. Do I have a second?
Second.
Ms. Truba?
Yes. I like this. Ms. Beal,
Yes.
Ms. Gilman,
Yes.
Ms. Hayes.
This is 0.1 to 0.5, correct?
Correct.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes, for me.
Okay. Mr. McCarthy,
Yes.
Mr. McGovern,
Yes.
Ms. Palamas.
Yes.
Ms. Tortorella?
I'm here, yes,
Oh,
yes.
so I'm sorry. I didn't know if you didn't hear me. Mr.
Sorry,
Weinstein?
no,
Yes,
Motion carries.
we'd like to discuss 11.6 at all? Or no?
Well,
It
we
says-
did it
Oh, we already did it
in
in closed
executive
session, right?
session.
Executive
session,
session,
yeah.
right, okay, great. Thank you, Ms. Parlonis.
Sure.
Back to Ms. Gilman, on policy.
Well, this is our first reading of revised policies as listed below. Contracts with independent consultants, budget hearing. The time has changed on that. Contracts for goods and services funded by federal grants. I think that's a spelling error there, not grants, but grants. And use of school facilities, our school nutrition programs. So this being a first read, it's just for discussion. And just wondering if anybody has any comments.
Just if I may, real quick.
Yes.
So 0175 is what Grace Ann referred to last week, that issue that the title was wrong from the body. So that's
So
correct.
that was revised.
So that's just corrected. And the others are
Budget
part
hearing
of
was
our
just the-
ongoing
right,
newer
the time
group
change.
newer
New
group of
group.
policies that
Right.
are being revised.
Right.
Regarding the nutrition one, I think it's great, but we're nowhere near 70%.
We're not, but they
So-
said to put that
Okay.
in. That is the
Okay.
only change. So it says if a district is at 70%.
Okay.
Now there's a new program. That was the only adjustment to the policy. So really, these policies, this is all part of us trying to update things and keeping up with the changes. And I'm gonna
Awesome.
continue to do this, but what I did was look at, like, what you see is like, in some of them, like for the goods and services, it's no longer the old name, it's now called SAM is the agency name. So that's what changed in the policy.
Mhm.
Okay, so we're basically just updating to what any new regulation or policy name is, and we're including it what we have for our policies.
So for example, the use of school facilities, everyone who uses our facilities receives copies of our policies related to concussions, head
Correct,
injuries.
correct. The liability insurance is the right
Liability.
amount, correct.
Okay, So that
Correct.
wasn't,
No change.
thank you.
And also just, so this is the first reading.
Correct.
So if there's things that people read and they feel like they want to make a comment about, or we can send it to
Yep.
Ms. Truba and then, and Ms. Gilman, and then, and Mayor, and Grace Ann.
Or- Right,
Right.
salary go.
That's how we right, and we can have those
Right.
things discussed.
So what
on
we
the
want
next
to
one, right.
do is during the work meetings, we want to try to get the policy updates for first reading.
Mhm.
And when we do the regular meeting, that's when we
Vote
want to
on
go
it.
for the
Right.
vote.
Right.
Okay,
Sounds good.
okay.
Okay,
Thank you.
anything else on any of the policies here? Okay, let's talk about 12.2. So it's about the virtual, or, you know, we're going to have a discussion around this. I think I like to, if it's okay with everybody else, you know, considering what just happened with the, you know, what's going on in the world here, the governor's recent statement about masks and all those things. I like to, what's the word, when you suspend or continue?
Table,
What?
like the table,
I
this
like to
discussion.
table this discussion, continue how we are, at least for the next 30 days, see where the world is. And, you know, if we see that in the, by the board meeting, I believe it's on February 1st, where we see that the numbers are starting to go down and we're ready to go back into that, then we can have a discussion on the first. We have
What I
any-
want- I'm sorry if I may, what I wanted to do too is just check with Michael Gross tomorrow as to what the new state of emergency means in relation to board meetings.
Yes,
And,
right.
and
Right, I'm
haven't had
sorry,
a chance
I
to
forgot, right,
address that.
Right,
yet.
right, we talked about that. We
Yeah.
need to check with Michael
Well,
Gross on what that
Why
means.
would anything change?
We're not sure if he put out anything related to that or.
Right, does the new,
It's
does
the
the
same
new,
executive
does the
order.
new executive order
Same
cover what was under the, or excuse me, what does the new state of emergency and the subsequent executive orders that came out as a result of that cover the operations of board meetings as had existed prior to January 1st? I think we need to check that, because if that is the case, then there's no need for us
Change it.
to
Change
address it right now. We would just operate under those rules.
Right.
So I think we just need to find out a little bit more information on that.
So is that okay with everybody? Remote people, is that, really shake your head. Give me like a big one like that, like, there you go, there you
I
go.
like the thumbs up.
Okay, all right. So I don't believe there's anything on public relations, nothing on technology. Can we go to old business? Ms. Gilman, you have some old business you'd like to discuss?
Well,
And
we
then I'll go to
had
you, Amy,
discussed,
right after that.
We had discussed having security, give us an update, especially for new board members as to, what's going on in our schools. I know we had people come in person, but that not being possible, even if they could send us a PowerPoint or something to just give us a security update at an upcoming
Well, when you say
meeting.
security update, what do you mean? Like when we had before, we had Mr. Bosman's, we had, I think, Ms.
Yes, we
Hagerman.
did.
They came and
I
we really
was-
talked,
I remember
it
that.
was more about sort of the discipline approach. It wasn't as much about security.
Yes,
What-
theirs was a discipline approach, but I remember Mr. Pembleton was there as well, I believe, and kind of just, not with, going into the nuts and bolts of what our security is, but, how many officers in each school and, what the procedures are as far as, drills or in an emergency, just kind of an overall without going into too much detail, perhaps at a future meeting.
Sure.
I mean, Denise, you're the person who was in charge.
Yeah,
of
and
that.
I had given a report about
Yeah.
a month ago as much as I could.
Mhm.
Yes.
Yeah,
And we had
can,
spoken
I
about
think, I
it.
think what would be good is just a refresher on what the different drills are, what
I
they
think that's more
mean.
like what you're looking.
A
Yes, it
couple,
is.
a couple of
Not-
months
not-
ago,
not the notes for- okay,
when there's a medical emergency and we have a stay put, what does that mean? And,
I
it
think that's
doesn't mean, doesn't mean terrible things are happening. It just
Right.
literally means people are staying put for a few minutes or
Mhm.
sometimes. I mean, it could mean more significant. So we have to talk about, we can come in and kind of go over all that. Sure, that's not a problem.
Thank you.
Okay, great.
Are the drills changing
Well-
with the governor's new announcement on tailoring the language a little differently for our younger students?
There was some new guidance that came out in the last couple of days
Mhm.
that honestly I haven't had a chance to absorb in any way, but I know that, yes, I did see that some new language came out regarding that, but
Cool.
don't ask me what it says because I could not tell you in all honesty.
Okay,
Just
great.
don't want-
So I'm going to go to our University of Alabama graduate, Amy McGovern. Anything you'd
Roll
like to say?
Tide.
Roll
Listen, you
Tide.
can't win them all. All right. I just.
Roll
had a-
over tide is what you should say. Roll over tide.
Oh,
Ouch.
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 Anyway, I know Miss Truba had brought up sort of maybe at one point that we could do all in favor votes instead of doing roll call. Have we checked on that to see if it's an ability to do? And, that's just my question.
You could do block voting at the end if we choose to do that.
Yeah, it's typically not done for personnel. And
Okay.
I would recommend not doing it for any, major
Yeah.
vote, but
Just wasn't sure. I know we had talked about expediting meetings. and we had it had come up, so I didn't know if there was more discussion about whether it was allowed and whether the board had any appetite for it. I don't really know that I have a opinion either way. I just wanted to know if it had,
Okay.
Well, we used to do it for minutes, right? Can't we at least do it for that? Approval of minutes? Yay and nay?
yes, I
Okay.
think so.
Yeah.
Or in accordance with Robert's rules, you can move to roll call votes, but any member at any point can request, you can move to block voting, but at any point, any member can request a roll call vote from that.
We got a new parliamentarian here.
I sure do. I know my rules.
I was parliamentarian in high school. I hate to admit that, but.
You should hate doing
I hate doing
that.
Anyone else have any old business that they'd like to bring up?
Yeah, I have one thing I want to say. It was an honor to be inaugurated with Mrs. Gilman and Ms. Parlamas last week. Having gone to Europe with Mrs. Gilman and her being a teacher of mine, it was really wonderful. And Ms. Parlamas spoke at my graduation, so it was very humbling to be inaugurated with the two of you. I'm very excited to join the board, and I'm happy to serve the community.
Very nice, John.
Last week was not the week to say it, so although I wanted to.
Okay, great,
Thank you.
great. Well, good to have you. Okay, why don't we move on to new business? Anybody for new business? Anybody remote first? really shake your head, like say no. Anybody in here for new business?
Yeah, I'll be quick. Ms. Trueba, do we have, I know I still say it.
That's fine,
Ms.
it's okay,
Trueba.
Go ahead.
When we are running bids, I think I asked this like a year or two ago also, are we having a statement in there that we prioritize women, veterans and minority?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Correct.
Thank you for that. And I don't think I'm alone in not knowing that there were presenters here tonight, so I apologize if I didn't read it that way, but I think some of us were surprised that there was gonna be an actual presentation. Is there a way to write that on the agenda or something, like the guys from
Of
so and
course,
so?
I'll do that going forward.
Yeah,
I
I
just
know
wanted
we're all
to make
kinda
sure
trying to
I
get
was
used to
sharing
each other.
things as soon as I received them.
Yes.
So, I'll make sure, and I did tell them, look, this could be potentially a late night. Are you okay with it? And they did say that this was fine with their schedule. So I want everybody to know that. So, because I knew it would be an in-depth conversation initially. So,
No, I appreciate them here.
Anyone else with any questions?
And when's our
Remote?
next PR update
Well, let
from?
me finish this. Anybody have any questions remotely? No, anybody here? Okay, Alex.
All right, I got that already. When is our next PR update from staff or from Ms. Burke?
We haven't said it. I mean, we could probably do it, probably by February at the latest. We can get one by the end of February.
And then, do you know what meeting before February 13th, we're gonna get the assessment results presented to the
Yeah,
board?
we're gonna do that either the 1st or the 8th. Ms. Weldon's working on the presentation, talking about the start
Yeah.
strong, yes. We have to do it by the 13th.
Yep.
So we wanted to do it at a workshop meeting. So she's finishing up that presentation. It'll be the 1st or the 8th. And
Okay.
we'll coordinate with Mr. Weinstein in terms of that.
Great, thank you.
in terms of what that'll be done.
That's it.
Okay, great. Now we're going to move to our last public comment section. Would anyone from the public like to make a comment of any time? Ms. Conway, is there anybody in the queue that would like to make a comment?
Yes, President Weinstein, there is one commenter, Keith Chapman. Please go ahead.
Okay,
Good evening. My name is Keith Chapman, 565 West Park Ave, Oakhurst. Two comments about something I've been seeing and hearing about lately. Number one, it's interesting about the security comment that was brought up. I just happened to be picking up materials today from a school, and one of our schools for my child, and I was buzzed in, allowed to enter, pick up the materials at the desk, and leave. No one asked me for my name. No one asked me who I was, why I was there. No one asked for ID. I go to schools every single day. I'm a teacher. I know what procedures are in place and what should be. There's no reason that we should be not asking for that information. There was no one at the, watching the door. I could have walked right into the building all the way. And, obviously there's a reason for concern for that. And I'm sure that there's procedures that are in place. I think, and I'm not even naming the school out. I think what needs to be done is reminding of everybody, and regardless of our staffing needs or whatever, that has to be first and foremost. No one should be able to enter our building without, making sure you know who that person is.
okay, thank you, Mr. Chapman, for telling us that. And Dr. Swink, would you look into that?
Of course.
Great. Thanks for bringing that to our
Okay,
attention.
Sure. Second question is, I'm on Twitter and Facebook and whatever else all the time. Like I said, I follow it very closely, and I notice a lot of extracurricular programs with kids and staff taking pictures without masks. I understand the need for, hey, you want to take a picture and you're like, I really want my face on there, but we're shoulder to shoulder, neck to neck. And in the letters that we're receiving, we're being asked at home over the break to, hey, wear masks in our groups, make sure everybody's protected, make sure that you're out in public wearing a mask, make sure we're taking these extra steps to help keep our kids in school as best as we can. But if you see that out on Facebook and Twitter and wherever else, and it's not just, it's a school provided media sponsored media stuff, it's, that goes to question, well, what are we doing,
Okay, yeah, so thanks for bringing that up. We, as a, I'll just answer this for a second, is that okay? As a policy, we want to make sure everybody does wear their masks. It's hard to police everybody all the time, and people are taking pictures. It's hard to do that. Like I said at the beginning, myself and Dr. Stankiewicz went to the game yesterday, and just was watching and see who was wearing masks and see how everybody was being, adhering to all this stuff. So, but
I went to see the game personally. I want to see the girls play.
but we do take it seriously, and we are reinforcing it. And but it's hard to do. It's hard to control everything.
Yeah, some of the, if I may,
Yeah.
some of the things that are on there are also at like competitions that are not in the district, so it's kind of difficult to know how other events and other communities and other groups are going to police some of these things. But we work very hard to ensure that our kids are wearing their masks all the time as much as possible. But I would absolutely be lying to you if there were times that, that there weren't times where, kids are gonna take a mask off, or perhaps just lower them to take a picture for 2 seconds and then put them back on. I mean, it's absolutely gonna be something that is gonna happen, and we continue to work towards not having that happen.
But then, thank you for your comment.
I'm sorry, but can we
Thank you.
clarify what our exact rules are in a sporting after-school event? Like
Let's take this. Let's finish the open comment, and then because I don't think
this is a work session, though. I mean, I am allowed to ask a question.
we're in public comment right now.
Yeah, but I'm allowed to ask a question in public comment. What are our policies in terms of, like, if there's a basketball game? Because I saw some of the, and I emailed you this and I didn't hear a response, but I saw the same photos that Mr. Chapman was talking about, and there were like 20 students watching a game without a mask.
I think
We
that was
can't have
the
that.
opening night basketball game about 3 weeks ago. And I got, I received some reports on that and spoke to Mr. Todd about that, spoke to Mr. Pembleton, who runs the security, to remind the students that when they're at, the policy's clear. It's when you're in a school building, you wear your mask.
So do we ask them to leave, or
I'm sorry?
we can ask them to leave,
We
right?
can, yes. I mean,
Okay.
in most instances, when we remind students, they will put them on, they comply. It's usually not a problem. But, I certainly, after students are wearing masks all day long and they come back to a basketball game, I certainly understand why they have a hard time, wearing them. But, we remind them, and they typically comply. And, but yeah, I mean, I think that first night I did hear of a few situations where people didn't have masks on. So we reinforced that with Mr. Todd and Mr. Pembleton. And when we were there last night, I know Mr. Todd sent out emails to all of his coaches reinforcing that, even participants who are not in the games should be masked. So he's reinforced that with all of them. And when we were there last night, I think there was very strong compliance.
Okay, good. Thank you. Any other questions, any other questions from the public, Ms. Conway, or comments?
Yes, President Weinstein, we have 2 more commenters. Next up will be Sandy Abdelaziz. Please go ahead and state your name and address.
Okay, thank you.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Hi, Sandy Abdelaziz, 30 Dune Road in Ocean. Quick question for Dr. Stefankiewicz. I don't believe you said it earlier, but if you did, I missed it. Do you foresee the use of facilities being extended, the ban on it being extended past, I think it was up till the end of next week or something at this point?
Well, I think, I mean, we never set an absolute date on it. I think we were always of the mind that let's see how things progress. And where we are with cases. I mean, I think, cases are still very high, but rate of transmission has actually been dropping. So that's a good thing. So I think, another week or so, and we can have a better idea. I mean, our goal is to get the people back using the facilities, but we have to feel confident and secure that we're not going to be helping, the spread of virus if we can,
Right.
if we can avoid it. So now, that being said, they're still going to meet somewhere and still potentially, spread virus wherever they meet, right? They don't have to meet here to do that. So I think our goal is to get them back as soon as we can. But I don't want to put an absolute date on it.
No,
yet.
I get it. I get it.
Yeah, but
Yeah, okay.
hopefully
My second is kind of more of a statement to go along with what Mr. Chapman just said. I tutor several, as you know, in district, and all I keep hearing from them is how when they're in class, they tell their teacher that they don't feel comfortable because their neighbors are either not wearing their mask, they're pulling it down below their nose, they report it, their parents call and report it, and it's just like nothing is changing. So I think there are a handful, I don't even want to point fingers or anything, but there are some teachers that just don't agree with the mask mandate that are not enforcing it in their rooms. And then the kids are going on to other rooms where teachers are enforcing it. And it's just, I think it just needs to, now that it's definitely from the governor again, it needs to be reiterated again, because all I keep hearing from these kids that I'm tutoring is that they don't feel comfortable in their classroom because all their neighbors have their masks pulled down and they're all talking to each other, and they just feel like there's just germs everywhere. So I just think, I hear you saying that you've told Mr. Todd to, and, I've been to a couple of matches, and not even just at games or anything, but I'm talking about in classrooms too now, and in school, and the kids are just wearing them down, like where their beard is, they're wearing it down below their chin, they're wearing it below their nose.
I think it's very difficult to wear a mask for 6.5+ hours a day.
That's the rule, though. That's the law. I mean, they have to.
I get it. I get it's the rule, it's the law, but when you're doing it, it's tough to do. It's very difficult to
Well,
do.
I guess I'm coming from the frame of mind that I have now had 3 family members with this Omicron because it is highly contagious.
Right.
And, now you're talking about kids with it down below their nose, and you don't know what's coming out of their nose, and it's just spreading everywhere in the classroom and on the desks and everything.
Yeah.
And I heard from
we've been very fortunate still to not be seeing a lot of in-school spread at this point. Hopefully that will continue. I think we have to realize what wearing masks all day can be very difficult. And I'm not saying that it's justified. I agree with you. It should not be happening. But it's very difficult to police. It's very difficult to be everywhere for our administrators. They are constantly reinforcing. I know our staff is constantly reinforcing.
Well, I agree. I don't agree with that last statement.
Well, no.
I don't think. your
Hold
staff
on,
is
Sandy.
all-
Let me finish if I may.
Yeah.
I agree with you that there are an overwhelming minority of staff members who may not do a great job of reinforcing. I agree with that, and that is absolutely true. But I think the overwhelming majority of our staff members do reinforce it, and our administration certainly reinforces it. We've always been clear that we don't want to get into providing punitive measures for kids. The whole point is to keep kids in school. We don't want to, provide suspensions to kids for mask violations, unless, of course, they become very defiant in their objection. So, it is an ongoing issue. It is an ongoing problem. I certainly agree with that. But it's a tough one. It's a very difficult one when you're, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18 years old, to keep that mask on, all the 40, 50, 60 years old, to keep that mask on all day long. It's very difficult. And I know we reinforce it, but it's tough. We are, 18 months in plus in this thing. And there's a lot of weary people out there, and everybody's doing their best to try.
So
to-
what do you recommend gets said to a student that you're talking to who is a good student, wears their mask perfectly all day long, but feels extremely uncomfortable because all their neighbors are not? What do you say to that student who has reported it to teachers and administration and parents have emailed? What do you say to that student?
Well, I would say first and foremost, thank you for everything that you're doing. We constantly reinforce that it's everybody's individual responsibility to try to do their part to make sure that that the spread of the virus is limited. It is absolutely a challenge, and I think someone doing the best, everybody doing the best that they can is certainly everybody's responsibility. And I know that when every time I'm in any of our buildings, when we see kids who are not wearing their mask properly, they are constantly reminded in the hallways and all over. It is a challenge. There's no doubt about it. But we have to keep reinforcing it and keep providing that as an expectation. That being said, it's impossible to have eyes everywhere at every moment. And then at lunch, and then they eat lunch and they take their masks off and they're all eating lunch together, so there's all kinds of challenges, but we do the best we can throughout the course of the day.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for your comment on that. Ms. Conway, any other questions?
Yes, one more commenter, President Weinstein. Linda McKeon, please go ahead and state your name and address.
Linda McKeon, 1305 Camp Avenue, Ocean. I'm glad that we are discussing transportation today, because I did read the superintendent's letter to the end, and I did see that there would be bus delays. This morning, my daughter was outside for 20 minutes and, pretty cold temperatures, and the bus still never showed. So I called Department of Transportation about 10 times before I finally got through. They told me that bus 75 had broken down, that a new bus was going to be sent. I said, okay. I said, there is a student I gave them my address and our bus stop. Make sure that they know to pick her up. There's nobody here to drive her to school. And okay, yes. And I figured that, okay, so now she has about 5 more minutes to stand outside to continue to do so. And the bus pulls at the wrong, there's only 4 houses on my street, so it's not very difficult to see anybody standing outside waiting for their bus. They're beeping at the wrong house. The guy is holding a paper in his hand, which I thought that in the beginning of the school year, I thought I heard that we have GPS systems in the buses so that they know where they're going. They're not holding a piece of paper and driving, because I don't see that any different as texting and driving. So the bus pulls, she's running towards the bus, waving her hands. Bus driver, reading the paper, continued to beep the horn down the road, sped down the road and turned the corner and left her. So I thought there was something in place in one of the early meetings that if a bus was going to be significantly late, that parents would be able to be contacted somehow or another. So we know that our child isn't just left out of school for the day. and the GPS system was something that I thought was in place as well. So I did try and call back Department of Transportation, and nobody picked up again. So I called to the intermediate school. I spoke with the secretary. She got in touch with them and said that the bus, they did have another bus and it was already had passed us. So my husband did have to come home from work, pick her up, and he did see bus 63, the new bus, pulling in with the paper in his hand, pulling into the school today. But I just felt like this whole stressful morning, her being late, the whole bit could have been avoided by just letting us know that the bus is late and implementing the GPS systems that were I thought we had.
Yeah, of course.
So first of all, I'm really sorry that that occurred. We do not have GPS systems, so that's something we talk about that we're looking into for future, for the future. But yes, we had certainly discussed the system, and we had a situation, I know, last week, if I'm not mistaken, where a bus was, we had a driver that it just unfortunately just didn't come in the morning, and we did not know if the driver was coming. So I know that text messages were sent out. I'm sure there was unfortunately just we didn't have that communication between the bus yard and the principal to be able to do that this morning. And so, that's certainly our fault. And I once again, I apologize. I do thank you for reading my letter, by the way, all the way through.
Yes, all the way through.
Thank you. I appreciate that. But what I would suggest, that what happened today, should not happen. I mean, unfortunately, our bus drivers are being impacted by staffing the same as our teachers, with being out right now. So that's why delays are certainly a possibility. But I think what occurred today, really, we worked very hard to try not happen, and we did not do a good job of that today. So I'm very sorry to hear that occurred. I think, maybe what we can do if we can, Tina, you have, I'm sorry, your name and everybody, maybe we can reach out tomorrow and, reach out to you directly tomorrow and discuss, ways that we can, improve upon that situation. Was today the only time that you've had an issue as of late, or has this been a consistent thing over the last week and a half?
It hasn't, we haven't had it. I mean, I've had it happen before, but not recently. And this is the worst by far that,
Okay.
and I guess it was a really cold day and it made it worse.
Right, it made it worse because it was 4 degrees outside. Absolutely.
And reading a paper and driving.
Just to clarify, I'm sorry, just to clarify, are you talking about like a what appeared to be like directions or like a
route paper? I don't know.
Like a route paper,
A
okay.
handful of papers in his hand.
Okay.
And he's looking at it and not looking. I mean, my daughter is in 8th grade, so it's not like she's a little first grader that you can't see, waving her hands up and down the street. And if you know Camp Avenue, there's 4 houses.
Mhm.
So it's it's a very wide open road. So I can't understand. And then my husband is, driving around the corner like a lunatic, trying to make sure that she's not stranded. It's
Right.
it was just.
Once again, we certainly apologize that shouldn't have happened. I mean, the bus breakdown is going to happen, but how we
understand.
how we address that should have been better. So we will work very hard to ensure that does not happen again. And thank you for bringing it to our attention.
Thank you.
What do you
Okay,
mean
thank
by,
you.
no, we don't have GPSs? I thought at first, she meant we don't have GPSs telling, dispatch where our buses are, but we don't have GPSs in our actual buses. These bus drivers are walking around with MapQuest directions and stuff? Is that what they're
No,
doing?
more than likely what we probably had a substitute
That's
situation
exactly
today.
what it
and
But even in a
that's what
substitute,
we
it's
have.
not like, we don't have a thing right there that says, go to this house next.
on if the sub's comfortable with using it.
Yeah.
Oh, so they have them, but not everybody's trained on them.
Exactly.
So they literally
So
might be like,
substitutes, we're getting subs as we can.
no, yeah, and I get that.
Yeah.
I get that, but
Yeah, I think what
I
we
thought we
talked
had a
about earlier in the
system.
year was something that tells like a parent where the bus is and all that kind of thing. So we don't have that.
yeah, that
at
we
this
don't
point.
have,
Correct.
but our actual
Yeah.
buses do have GPS.
Yeah, we have the ability
machines
to build the certainly dispatch and the drivers, they know where buses are. That what should have happened today, but what happens is, when you're short staffed, sometimes it's just very difficult to make that call. And so we just have to reinforce that with the transportation department to get that to the principals. So the principals can tweet, or can remind that out that the bus is running
I
significantly.
think what Alex is asking is more like a GPS.
Like a
cars
Garmin,
have a GPS.
like a
I don't
Garmin.
think our buses have an actual GPS.
I don't think all of them do.
No, not all
I
of
do
them
not
do.
believe
Some
all
of
of
them
them
do.
do.
Do they use
So I
like
don't
How do
know
we-
if Bus 63 has one. I have to
How
be
do we
honest.
fix that?
Right.
Yeah, well, that's,
By upgrading our
that's
buses.
that's one thing to work on, right?
Right, the ones that are 10 years old, they don't have that technology.
Can a sub put his iPhone somewhere and look up directions, or is a sub literally like using MapQuest? This is what I'm,
Yeah, well, it
Okay.
depends on
That-
a lot of
that's
factors.
not acceptable.
Depends on a lot of factors.
So, okay.
We certainly don't want the driver having their phone out and being distracted.
No, but
in
if
that
it's a,
regard.
Ms. Conway, is there any other people on the line that want to ask a question?
No, President Weinstein, there are no more commenters.
Great, thank you, thank you for your help. At this time, I'd like to make a motion to adjourn, or I'd like to get somebody who can make a motion to adjourn.
Motion?
Second.
Great, thank you. Have a nice night, everybody.
Nailed it.